Labs, get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Very good morning, welcome along to Friday morning's OTB AM. It's the 26th of May and we're with you until 10 o'clock as per usual this morning. OTB AM with Gillette Labs, get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. It doesn't feel like Friday because Adrian Barry is no longer beside me, but we have a stacked studio, let me tell you something. Cork's Colm, good morning.
Morning, Shane.
Oh my God.
Mayo's Cameron Hill. Good morning, Mayo. Good morning, Mayo Cameron.
Yeah, thanks a mil. Great.
And Galway's Johnny Ward.
Morning, Shane.
How are things? How are you keeping, lads?
Country well represented here, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's kind of a
real spread.
Well, it's very, I was going to say it's very west. There's two lads from the west.
No Leinster representation.
No.
I think, given the events last weekend, maybe they didn't want to come on.
It's for the better. We had to separate the Galway and Mayo lads across the room as well. We couldn't put them beside each other.
We went to the league final together, so
okay.
We had
and we both don't like Roscommon, so the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
The day. So you know,
it works in Connacht. Well, everyone hates Mayo, don't they?
Depends on what part of in Galway. It kind of depends on whether you're near the Galway or the Roscommon border. I've always generally, if Mayo win All Ireland, I want them to win because I think I think Mayo people are sound. Yeah.
If Mayo are playing All Ireland, you want them to win?
See, I grew up with Galway winning a couple of All Ireland, so you wouldn't begrudge them that sort of way.
Backhanded compliment there.
No, but do you know what I mean? It's not like Mayo, like the success of Connacht teams in the All Ireland series is appallingly bad. Like no team other than Galway has won the All Ireland since Mayo in 51, was it?
Yeah.
Like that's incredibly bad. We've at the moment we've three of the best teams in the National League. Like we'd first, second, and third in the National League.
Yeah.
Galway and Mayo are definitely All Ireland contenders. But like Mayo, I mean Mayo people, in fairness, they're a bit mad. Like because when you want something for so long, it's like chasing somebody and thinking that it's going to happen and still thinking that it's going to happen, and then thinking that it's going to happen and then thinking it's going to happen. But Mayo people, like, football is like, it's a bit like Monaghan, obsession to an extent, like similar enough populations, punch above their weight, but just haven't won.
Monaghan and Roscommon or Monaghan?
Mayo.
And we have a much smaller population than Mayo.
Roscommon and Monaghan have a similar population.
Of course.
Mayo have a bigger population, but they haven't won it, and I generally would like them to win All Ireland because just so they can get it over with at this stage, because it's been hard going to the well so often. But most people in Galway might disagree.
Right, fair. That's fair. Loads still happening in the world of sport. Eddie Dunbar still turning up in the Giro d'Italia. The Celtics beat the Heat last night to take the series to a Game 6 at least in the Eastern Conference Finals. Game 6 will be Saturday night in Miami, so that's for the right to play the Denver Nuggets in the championship game. But lads, Old Trafford last night, I suppose. Manchester United 4, Chelsea 1. Champions League football secured for Manchester United for next season. Means Liverpool will not be in the Champions League next season.
Mo Salah wasn't happy.
No, he put up
That was an interesting
statement on his social media accounts, didn't he?
What do we read into that?
I think he wants to take a leadership role.
Yeah.
Because he's committed to Liverpool last summer, signed a big long-term contract. Shane was you were cynically suggesting that his agent suggested to him, Mo, poaching full time here, United are going to win.
So for people who haven't seen it, I mean, it's a photo of the back of Salah's jersey, him during a match, looking a bit sad, and he's put the filter on it for grey. So he's
morning, the last of Champions League football.
Morning onto it. He said, "I'm totally devastated. There's absolutely no excuse for this. We had everything we needed to make it to next year's Champions League, and we failed. We are Liverpool, and qualifying to the competition is the bare minimum. I'm sorry, but it's too soon for an uplifting or optimistic post. We let you and ourselves down." That was at 10:07 p.m. last night, so just after action had finished at Old Trafford.
It only took him an entire season to take the initiative there. Good for him.
The up to Joe stat, best minutes per goal or assist rates among Premier League players this season in all competitions. 65 Erling Haaland, 93 Salah, 97 Evan Ferguson. I was actually surprised that Salah has been involved in a goal or assist only once every 93 minutes, and that.
You want us to talk about Evan Ferguson? Is that what you're saying here?
This is
We leave Ferguson out of this, but 90, he had a kind of a patchy season till as well. His pace is just slightly gone as well. Maybe he feels himself that like he didn't have his best season for sure. But it was an interesting. I don't know if he's a serial tweeter, but there was a lot packed into that tweet.
A lot going on.
Definitely felt strategic. Actually, Salah's a bit like Harry Kane this season in that they've both been excellent individually.
Yeah,
statistically,
goals.
And the teams have underperformed massively. I really enjoyed last night's game again, a bit like Brighton Man City the night before.
Yeah, well, Brighton Man City was a better game, wasn't it?
Quality 100%. Someone tweeted last night that it was the worst quality end-to-end game they've ever seen. But there was so many chances, and I was saying beforehand, Frank Lampard said all season long, we're creating chances, we're just not finishing them, we're not clinical enough. And to be fair, he had a point last night in the first half. Mudryk missed the sitter after less than 3 minutes.
Havertz missed one as well.
Havertz missed the header, and Conor Gallagher, right in the stroke of half time,
across the goal,
pulled his shot wide. When
you're the manager though, like people are missing chances partly because you're the manager, because there's a collective lack of belief. Absolutely, like bringing in a new manager,
missing a chance is down to a manager.
It's not. It's part of the whole thing. Like look at the confidence. The
finishing is a skill. There's almost this idea that we created loads of chances, so we're actually okay. Well, did you score them? Look
at the body language of Havertz and Mudryk. Like you can almost see they're not going to score when they're in front. Really good chances, you mentioned the first half. Like bringing in Lampard was one of the most stupid things you could ever do in management. It made no sense, and now it's spectacularally backfired. I wouldn't have thought it would have gone this bad. But
he's lost 8 of his 10 games.
But for Tuchel, they'd be relegated practically. Like, do you know what I mean? They're 3 points. If Forest win their last game, they're 3 points above Forest. And Chelsea lose. Like it's incredibly bad.
Forest is one of the 2 sides that he didn't lose against. That was a draw. 2-2 at home, Stamford Bridge. And the other one, does anyone remember it? A few weeks ago, 3-1 away to Bournemouth.
Right.
Which I think Bournemouth took the lead in that, or they equalised at the very least. But yeah, like Johnny makes a good point. Like when they brought in Frank Lampard, presumably it was for a bounce club legend. He did okay the first time around at the start of his 10 years. So it was like maybe we'll get a bit of that. He's been away a bit.
The club legend thing is absolutely irrelevant.
But it was like, what was the point of losing Graham Potter for this? Because I don't think Potter was ever going to go on an 8 out of 10 game losing streak. So they're 12th in the league. It's by far, Sky Sports threw up a graphic last night, it's by far the fewest number of Premier League goals they've scored in the tournament's history. It's been a disaster, and considering all the talent that they have in abundance in that squad. Afterwards, Lampard had a very honest interview, as it was sold on Sky Sports social media feeds, 5.5 minutes with Patrick Davison, and before I watched it, I was thinking, like, I have a fair idea of what he's going to say here, and it was bang on for 5.5 minutes. He's so conscious of doing that now.
Does Frank Lampard have a magic wand where he can solve all this?
Well, he was, because he did make that point that they did once again create a load of chances and they're not finishing them.
Did 60% possession in the game.
That's it. I did see a friend of the show, Yasmin Baba, having a great laugh and putting up the statistics, saying this is the most Chelsea of Frank Lampard Chelsea games ever in terms of stats. They had 62% possession. Their expected goals was 1.34. And they didn't score, and United's was like 0.25.
Well, like he was on about in that post-match interview saying, like, people are on to me with playing a back 5 and they criticise me for that, but I can play a back 5, a back 4, a midfield 3, a front 2. It doesn't matter if the players aren't committed. And then he went back to the players in the middle section of the interview saying, like, the commitment's just not there in training, the application isn't, and there's only so much I can do as a result of that.
In other words, I'm not capable of doing anything.
Yeah, surely that is definitely something you can control, is their commitment.
That's literally your job. Like,
what's the future for Lampard? Is he managing next season anywhere?
Surely not.
Does anyone want him?
Well, not obviously
at any level.
Not in the Premier League.
There are a lot of idiots out there, though. Like, this was a stupid appointment, and if Chelsea are that stupid, there have to be a lot of other stupid clubs. Like,
do you all reckon that he actually is a useless manager, or is there something in him at all?
I think if he wasn't Frank Lampard, he wouldn't be getting any of these jobs.
Same with Gerrard. Like Gerrard, look at Gerrard at Villa this season. Like, appalling record until they changed the manager. Emery comes in and like they
won the Scottish Premiership.
Well, with Everton, he did keep them up last season when they were in trouble of going down.
He did.
With Derby, he got them to a playoff final. Now, I've said that before, and I've had loads of people saying that Derby squad was incredibly talented, and the very least they should have got was a playoff final.
You have to give the manager some credit, though.
And at Chelsea at the start, he was okay. He did okay for a while at Chelsea, and then it all went wrong. So if you look at his record coldly, like, and take away the reputation of Lampard, he's not totally terrible, right?
I'd like to see him as a scout. I'd like to see him as a scout, because the line he always puts out is clearly these players aren't good enough, and the players I've been saddled with, like the Germans.
Yeah, go find the players there.
The Germans TM that he would always refer to in his first stint at Chelsea. So maybe he could unearth some other gems like Mason Mount. Maybe that's his thing, that he actually knows where all the good players are. He's just kind of keeping it close to his chest.
Yeah, it's hard to know, because he was a pretty instinctive player. Like, that was his whole thing, was arriving into the box. Like, he wasn't a midfielder who controlled the game.
Yeah.
Like John Giles said that about him plenty of times over the years, and funny enough said the same thing about Gerrard, that they weren't typical midfield players in the way he would consider a central midfield player to be. But Lampard was incredibly effective.
Yeah,
arriving late in the box.
Busted flushes as managers really already, like, at this stage. Like,
but that's what I mean, that their playing style correlates with their management style, which is like, you're relying on inspiration, and you can't control it because you're on the sideline. So where does that leave you?
A lot of people in the comments having their say on Lampard as well. Brian says Lampard took a job nobody else would take. In fairness, the Mudryk transfer will go down as one of the worst big money moves ever. The players aren't fit because of Potter.
Mudryk is a very good player. Like, you can imagine him like ripping it up under a new manager.
You see the pace of the second half.
He's very quick.
Like, Mudryk's a seriously good player. Like, that chance in the first half, like,
when he came on against Arsenal, he did well.
His debut against Liverpool at Anfield, it was a 0-0 draw, and he was very impressive.
Yeah, he was very good.
But your point there, when he missed the sitter after 3 minutes, and you're putting it down to his lack of confidence, presumably under the leadership of Lampard. But it was the same with Potter. He was like that. He was very uncertain of himself.
Yeah, but that's the manager's job, though. Do you know what I mean? Good managers get the best out of their players. Like, Lampard is clearly not a good manager at all. I would have done a better job in that time than Lampard. Like, nobody could have done worse. Like, nobody could. Well, you literally, lads, just do your jobs, and like, play. You have a lot of potential here. You have a lot of quality. Score a couple of goals. Don't be terrible. They've been absolutely awful.
They look like at the start of the second half, United had a load of chances to make it 3-0 early on. Like, Bruno Fernandes hit the woodwork, and it really looked like they gave up, Chelsea, at that point. They kind of came back into it at the end. Like, João Felix scored a lovely goal, like an individual goal, and like a player that Lampard's pretty much completely cast aside. He looks a step above everyone else, but you've seen so little of him. And like, a point was made in commentary, I think it was Gary Neville said, it's just like like, they have 1 million players, and he's one of the players that they definitely won't have next season, because they don't have an option on him unless they go back to Atletico and say, okay, we'll actually try and buy him, and you'd almost be building a team around him. Yeah,
he's one of the players they need. Because when you look at the bench that they had that last night, like, there's so much talent in the squad, but I don't know how Lampard can manage. I'd say he's
well, it doesn't matter now. He's gone.
He's got the gap. Casemiro, I thought, was pulling the strings quite effectively last night.
He was very decent. Marcus Rashford, 30 goals this season.
Someone's commented, Fergus Keogh, Mo Salah 30 goals 15 assists equals per season. Marcus Rashford 30 goals 11 assists equals great season.
I don't think we said Salah had a poor season.
No, he's not at the level he was.
And Rashford's season has certainly tapered downwards a little bit towards the second half of the season. But
we came out with a bang. Like, it's a bit like Arsenal. It was like, people are criticising Arsenal for finishing second, but they were so good for so long.
I have to pick up on that. I've been very frustrated with that kind of discussion around Arsenal.
You brought this up. Go on.
Yeah, like, this idea. So the now deferred fire pit until next week, we were going to talk about bottling and what is the definition of bottling. And something that's really annoyed me is the notion that Arsenal bottled this season. They didn't at all. Like, you have to look at this season as an anomaly, like an aberration. I know John Hartson was saying that, you know, it's not a 30-game season, it's a 38-game season, and Arsenal are going to have to buckle up. And it wasn't a 38-game season. You had the deferred matches because of Queen Elizabeth's death. That compounded a lot of fixtures towards the end of the year. There was also a shortened pre-season. The season started at the start of August, and we had the small matter of a bloody World Cup mid-season. Like, this has been a crazy season.
But Manchester City had to deal with all that too.
Yeah, but we've all talked about how big Manchester City squad is and how they can pretty much change everybody except the goalkeeper and still beat everybody within the league, whereas everybody else has to contend with the same squad depth issues. They all look wrecked. All the teams look absolutely out on their feet at this stage, and that's why I feel like things have kind of petered out before the final day, is that everyone is really tired. They just want the season to end. Figuratively and spiritually, they're all on the beach. And we've talked about this before. Like, it's been a topic that's come up time and time again over the last couple of years, and strangely, this year of all years has been the year it hasn't been touched on. Is that there's so many games for players, so many right now, there's so much football to play. You had a World Cup midway through, you throw that on top. It wasn't a normal season, and yet everybody's talking about, well, Arsenal kind of threw that away, didn't they?
I think that's pretty much bang on. Like, I would agree with a lot of that, but you have to say West Ham away and Southampton at home.
Yeah,
they
just
did
gonna
throw
say
those
that.
away.
Yeah.
They did throw those games away.
Sure, yeah.
3-1 down against Southampton and got 2 goals back.
But
like,
in
funny
West Ham,
enough.
Bukayo Saka missed the penalty,
Yeah.
right?
And the Liverpool game
and
as
then
well.
West Ham went down and scored. Yeah, Liverpool. Look, at Anfield is a decent point. Overall.
Just the nature of it.
But the nature of it,
Yeah.
totally.
They've had a phenomenal season. Like,
They've a brilliant season. but-
81 points from 37, lost 6 games, like taking on a team that's really, has been able to do whatever it wants in terms of getting whatever players it wants, and is, the best Premier League team ever, probably. And they're a clear second. Like, this issue of bottling, I'd agree with Cameron. I think it's complete nonsense. Like, and players probably are getting very, very tired as well.
like you see, like someone as cut and thrust and swashbuckling as Brighton, they've looked wrecked.
Yeah.
And they've had to pick their games. Like in a normal
hand on
year,
players is absolutely absurd. Like, it's absolutely absurd.
completely. And this idea of the 5-1 against Everton was a really good win for Everton. No, it was Brighton looking out on their feet. Like, let's be real about that. And
But are we giving a team a pass every time they lose because they're tired if we like them? Whereas the Frank Lampard's Chelsea lose is because of him.
no, because Frank Lampard, as we've discussed, has probably as close to a Manchester City type squad as anyone could have in terms of the quality that's already on the bench. They're just really poorly managed. But I don't think there's any other team really that has that level of depth that City have across the board. It's impossible to keep up with that.
Emma Carroll,
Absolutely
our own Emma
impossible.
Carroll, making the point. Everyone said Liverpool bottled the league too when they got 97 points and lost on the final day by a point. City just go on crazy runs. Yeah, I agree. I think the word bottled is thrown around too often, but it's probably a case of Arsenal bottled a little period of those few games. They didn't bottle the season.
They were 11 points clear in January.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, like it was Kevin Keegan's
January,
Newcastle in 1996.
It wasn't, though. But
You could look at it that way if you want to be
Man
real
City
tough
are
about
going
it.
to end up with 92
I think the
points,
problem is like the West Ham and Southampton games. I suppose it goes to like the short termism in football punditry, and we're all guilty of it. But also it's because of Johnny said this all the time. It's like players have to play every 3 days. It's an insane schedule,
Yeah.
and as a result, we're all reacting to game by game. But if they had drawn with Southampton and the West Ham game, if they happened, say, one in September and another in December, no one would talk about them at all. And it would be the same impact on the points.
If Arsenal had won either of the games against Man City, they're level, right? If they'd won either, and in both games they were comfortably inferior. Like,
Yeah.
they were so inferior.
that's it.
So like,
Yeah,
that's the
absolutely.
bottom line.
Better team won the title.
Finishing
Exactly.
second in the league is a massive achievement. for
Absolutely.
Totally. And the West Ham and Southampton games were inconsistent performances, if anything. Like, there were periods of that game against West Ham where Arsenal were just irresistible. And that's the problem with the pressure and the amount of games you're playing, is that it doesn't necessarily manifest itself in your energy levels. Sometimes it's your sharpness. And I think some of the goals that Arsenal conceded in those 2 games were down to a lack of focus. Like, there were goals that, teams wouldn't concede if they were like completely in the zone. Do you know?
People have
So,
their thoughts
yeah.
and comments on this one as well. Yeah, bottled is a bit of a strong word, isn't it? I also had a discussion with a couple of my housemates last night about, and it's a hypothetical. Say Manchester United win the FA Cup final, which is a massive if against Man City. So say United finish top 4, which they will, win the League Cup, which they have, and win the FA Cup. So it's 2 trophies in the top 4. Is that a better season than Arsenal, who have no trophies but were involved in a title race, so their fans got to enjoy the whole season, enjoy the I guess excitement of being in a title battle, albeit they don't have a trophy to show for it? But which season do you prefer?
I think if you look back in 5 years' time, both, you'd probably go Arsenal, because they remember how they overachieved for 3/4 of the season. I think traditionally fans would prefer the trophies, like they'd love to win a trophy, but nowadays, like, the importance of the Champions League almost overrides every trophy bar the Premier League title. So it's more important for a club like Newcastle, you could argue, have nearly had as good a season as Manchester United, despite losing the League Cup final to them and not getting into the FA Cup, because they, for the first time in 20 years, are back in the big time in the Champions League, which will enormously help their appeal to players this summer that you'll play Champions League football.
Yeah, you also have to remember, like, United season as a whole. I think, when we get to the revisionism, and it's very fresh, we haven't even got to the final day yet, but the crushing blow of those games against Brighton and Brentford at the start of the year, like, that is a part of the season.
Absolutely.
And that would have affected it and set the tone.
Half time in that Brentford game, a game and a half into the season, they were 6-1 down on aggregate. They lost 2-1 at home to Brighton, which is their only home defeat of the season as it transpired. And in that game against Brentford, and you're like, Jesus, there was a rumour that Eric Ten Hag was going to walk away at the end of it. Was like, this is a complete disaster that I've taken over. And the way he's turned around, you have to say it's a successful season. Bruno Fernandes was asked on the pitch. I've noted Sky Sports have done these on the pitch immediately after the game interviews now with players where they walk around with the BT Sport do the same thing. And he Patrick Davison was saying to Bruno, like, decent season, and Bruno said that's exactly what it is. It's decent. Which I think is fair.
We're not getting carried away. We will touch more on Manchester United season and the game last night with Samuel Luckhurst of the Manchester Evening News around 8:10. This morning we'll have Séamus Hickey. Before that, talking Limerick hurling and of course previewing the weekend's hurling generally speaking. 8:30, the great David Brady will join us. We'll take a bit of a look back at Mayo last weekend. We haven't touched on it yet with him, and look ahead to this weekend's All-Ireland Group Championship, whatever we're calling it, matches. Shebahn Aherne at around 8:50, looking ahead to the final day of the WSL season, which is I guess building up to be a bit of a classic. Chelsea have the title in their hands ahead of their game against Reading tomorrow, but we'll touch on all that with Shebahn, and of course some stories involving the Irish players as well, and Alan Quinlan on the line from South Africa at 9:10, previewing the URC final between
We should
Munster
also point out, Jane, before we move on, Johnny's wearing shorts today, and I think it's the first studio appearance of someone wearing shorts this year.
Big shout. I've been thinking about risking it different mornings, and I was like, because yesterday afternoon you're thinking this is someday here.
It's 11 degrees getting up this morning, and it's weird as the changing of the seasons as well. Like I had my alarm set the other morning for like 5:25, and when you've set that early, or at least with me anyway, you just keep waking up thinking either A, you've slept in, or B, your alarm is just about to go off. But it was bright for ages before I woke up. I was like, this is mad, and it makes it so much easier to get up in the morning.
You have a good set of cycling pins on you, a good set of legs, you see, Johnny. That's why you want to get them out, is that it?
Are you praising my legs?
Well, there you go. You've had a few praise in the comments this morning, Johnny. Who said? So someone said the Young Bucks panel. Speaking about the four of us.
There we go. I'm 40, like.
And then
I'll take
40.
Hugh replied, sure, Johnny's in his mid-40s. And then Kevin replied, he looks younger though.
Well, I'm not in my mid-40s, like.
No. But someone said you look younger.
That's good. You should be happy with that. I have like one big contract left in football age.
Oh really?
At
what
best.
age are you?
At best. It depends how good I was as a player.
Depends what position
I might get an
you're a goalkeeper.
What?
You're a goalkeeper, so that's no.
No, I'm not.
Keepers at your age we get a
I might get an MLS deal, maybe.
Right,
depending on the success of my career to that point.
Conor O'Donnell has commented, by the way, hey lads, could you give a shout out to the Irish foot golf team and their captain Ronan Lina flying out to the World Cup in Orlando this morning. Best of luck, lads. That is unbelievable. Imagine flying to Orlando today to play in the foot golf World Cup.
Brilliant.
That is absolutely ridiculous. Have you ever played foot golf?
No.
Yeah, it's class. It's good, isn't it?
Go crack.
It's basically just a goal kick to start with.
Yeah, essentially.
And then, but then it's when you get towards the green.
It's tactical. I love a bit of foot golf. Yeah. We should do an off the ball day out or something.
Don't need to swear.
We should do so much shit.
That's very good.
There you go.
That was very, very good. We should touch on a couple of other bits and bobs that are happening as well across the sporting sphere. As they say, the Irish women's team, they had a lot of players making headlines yesterday for various reasons, different exits from different clubs. So Megan Connolly and Megan Walsh leaving Brighton. Rusha Littlejohn announced she's leaving Aston Villa. Megan Campbell is leaving Liverpool. It's all go.
No more long throws.
No more long throws. Certainly from Liverpool's perspective. We'll hopefully see them in the World Cup though.
There is an amusing Twitter kind of interchange this morning as well, or from last night. In the call, who obviously we know, he tweets Paul Galvin, like this is reacting, but Paul Galvin is reacting to a clip of Paul Scholes' passes, and Paul Galvin just says, Scholes amazing player, but I could name a dozen Gaelic footballers who could pass like that given the same time and space, right? To which in the caller replies, yeah, totally the same. And then Dan McDonald, who always gets really worked up about this idea that GA players are basically just soccer players that decided to play football. He said it's either an elite case of GA exceptionalism or a spectacularly effective wind-up. And Paul has been on the show. Which one was it, Paul?
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Do you get what Dan has this point?
Yeah.
Like, remember we used to have like
football, as in soccer, is a much more skillful sport than a lot of people who don't play it realise. You know, if you actually played a 90-minute game of soccer, you'd realise this is skillful. So maybe there's people who are into Gaelic football and don't particularly play or pay heed to soccer who don't realise or understand that. I'm a fan of both.
I think though, I feel that it's a lot of it is coaching. Like a lot of really good Gaelic footballers are very good at soccer growing up, and they just kind of gravitate towards one because of family ties, or
I think
even
it's
the structures.
It's such a tedious debate. It's so my dad could beat up your dad. I really hate those sport versus sport.
Cameron's not having anything this morning.
I don't want to compare them. We should mention the injury for Aoife Mannion as well. Small tweak to her knee. Anytime there's an Irish women's player now that is down as injury, you get a little bit concerned because the World Cup is only a couple of months away. July 20th I think is our first game. There's tickets on sale by the way this morning. So Ireland are going to host Zambia on Thursday June 22nd, so that is less than a month away, before taking on France. That's Thursday July 6th. Two key games as part of the World Cup preparation. Tickets on sale 10 o'clock this morning, so just over 2 hours to go.
We'll see Hervé Renard. Will he wear his white shirt?
Oh yeah,
on the France technical
area.
Yes,
that'll be a sight to behold.
And another friendly announced as well.
Oh yeah, Colombia. That's going to be behind closed doors in Brisbane, July 14th. So 6 days before the Vera Pauw's team get their World Cup underway. So that'll be I presume the last game before.
Yeah, you'd think so. Yeah,
World Cup 6 days is probably just enough time. You'd imagine. As I said, we'll talk WSL with Shebahn Aherne later on the show this morning. You want to talk French Open?
Well, I just wanted to mention, I got this online yesterday. I didn't realise it had been 8 years since Bill O'Hurley he passed away. The great Bill O'Hurley.
Okie doke.
Ah, what a man.
What are your memories of Bill O'Hurley?
Well, he made my childhood
Cork man
and adolescence.
Is he Cork man?
Oh yeah. I mean through and through, and maintained the accent despite spending the majority of his life living up here, and was initially on the news side of things at RT. And then they had something happen in the sport department where he had to fill in, and the rest is history. But like, I just every so often look back on the Billo, Giles, Dunphy, Brady days on RT, and just the way Johnny is accidentally doing a very good kind of impression of the way that Bill would just kind of sit back, have the pen, and be like,
watch it all unfold.
What do you mean by that, Eamon?
Yeah,
and then
simple but effective.
It was incredible. He always acted like he pretended like he was completely clueless and being like, "Tell me about this football thing," but very much knew his stuff. But just let them
Your fellow
get on with it.
Don Logue's kind of clash with Joanne Cantwell as well reminds us of the old RT era where like it was a lot of personalities, because under Declan McBennett, whether it's anything to do with Declan or not, and it probably is, RT has moved on from the
totally
the personality days.
It's different. It's a different world now.
It is, and like you can debate the ins and outs of it, but it's from another era.
It was a specific type of incredulity with Bill. I remember there was the Dunphy clip where he calls someone a spoofer, and Darren Maloney calls him up. And he says, bullshitter. But Maloney can't carry off that sort of what? Eamon Dunphy swearing on air, that kind of what's going on here? It's very Simon Amstel on Nevermind the Buzzcocks, seeing Donny. You were at the
Soonest event though. Remember the Off the Ball Soonest event with Wes Brown and John O'Shea recently as well. The Just Eat one. That was they did play a clip at one stage up on the big screen of the good old days with Billo and Eamon and Soonest in the middle of them as well. It was just an absolute. I'd forgotten how good those days were.
Do you remember when Dunphy was like Rod Little? He's the one, and then Bill goes, "Eamon, you can't say that." But then it's like, but keep on going anyway.
I know, Eamon.
That was the best thing when he got really Cork, when he's you can't be saying that. Come on. And then there's a little twinkle in his eye. And there was one time, it was actually latter stages when Bill was questioning the support in an Ireland game in the real down days. I think it was the end of Trap, and Liam Brady went mad, took a huge exception to Bill being like, well, the fans aren't showing up. And then Brady was like, it's a tough time, the economy's really struggling, I can't believe you'd say something like that about the fans. And then Bill was like, I'm just saying, it wasn't a full stadium.
Just winding you up.
But they had an amazing respect for him, because they were like proper football men, these three lads, and Bill wasn't, but they still had a huge amount of respect for the way he would just drop a bomb, sit back and enjoy. I loved him.
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
Loved him. But I can't. 8 years. Jeez,
it's hard to believe he's 8 years gone as well, isn't it? Like,
what amazing. He's my favourite.
Your favourite broadcaster?
One of many, but up there, right up there. Yeah.
Your favourite Cork broadcaster?
There's
a long list there as well.
Big list. Yeah. And the French Open starts Sunday coming, 2 days time.
There's no Nadal, Colm.
No Nadal, first time ever. He's not playing the French Open since he made his debut in 2005. The big probably takeaway from the men's side is that Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz, the two favourites, and they're set to play each other in the semi-final. So we're going to be robbed of that final, unfortunately, because Djokovic is third seed, hasn't played an awful lot of tennis this year.
Swiatek, Gauff.
Exactly. So the quarter-final projection will be last year's final. Iga Swiatek against Coco Gauff. So Swiatek's world number 1 defending champion. She's won the French Open twice already. And Aryna Sabalenka finally won her first Grand Slam, the Australian Open. It started this year. She's probably her biggest challenger, and they're on the opposite side, so they could play each other in the final. Swiatek, Sabalenka looks like it's going to be the women's final. This is if everything goes according to plan, of course. And the men's final, it's all about the semi-final. Djokovic, Alcaraz. I think Djokovic will win.
Right.
And then he'll play probably Daniel Medvedev based on form. But Casper Ruud got into last year's final against Nadal. He could also get to the final. I'd say it'll be Medvedev, Djokovic final.
Where does the French Open rank in your list of 4 Grand Slams in terms of enjoyment?
4th.
Oh dear.
Per French Open.
I don't like the aesthetics
Of the clay.
burnt orange and the yellow ball, and if it's sunny, you just have the hope of seeing it.
Very different coloured.
I would prefer if they could do something about that. It would be great.
exchange
I like Wimbledon the most, and then the US, and then the Australian,
Strike me as a
and then
Wimbledon
French.
man, alright.
It's the one Grand Slam where they announced the scores in a different language. Surely that's brilliant.
Roland Garros.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
Gans,
that's in the plus column.
Oh, it's great.
Right in the top four.
I really think women's tennis needs to the top 4. French Open just qualifying for.
Do you know who
Champions
Roland
League.
Garros was? I remember I did a history project on him in school.
No, go on.
He was a French aviator in World War One, a World War One ace. I'm fairly sure.
Did he like
Fighter
tennis?
pilot died in 1918 in the war. But if you have time this morning, read up on Roland Garros. Fascinating life.
Did he like tennis, Shane?
I don't know what the link with tennis is.
Yeah.
I did a research project on him. So
What was World War One about? Did you figure out?
On that note,
Go on, like,
start
What's behind it? Go on.
Go on. There's the biggest rabbit hole we've ever gone down.
Genuinely, what was it about?
Let's
What was it all
get
about?
out of here.
Yeah. Colm and Cameron, thanks for popping in this morning. Friday mornings, OTBAM at 8 a.m. with myself and the superb Johnny Ward, as always. OTBAM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. Time to turn our attention to matters hurling, because it's a big weekend across the hurling championship in both Leinster and Munster. The Joe McDonagh final as well. Time to say good morning to the former Limerick star, Séamus Hickey. Morning, Séamus. How are things?
Morning, lads. How are you?
Thanks for hopping on. I have a list of fixtures in front of me here just to run people through them. So tomorrow, Saturday, we have the Joe McDonagh Cup final. That's Carlow and Offaly at Croke Park at 4:45, and then Sunday's big games: the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship around 5. All these games at 2 o'clock. So at TEG Cusack Park, it's Westmeath and Antrim. The Dubs take on Galway at Croke Park at 2, and it's Wexford Kilkenny at Chadwick's Wexford Park from 2 o'clock as well. That's a big game for Wexford. And in Munster, both games at 4 o'clock on Sunday. Tip Waterford at the FBD Semple Stadium, and the TUS Gaelic Grounds at 4 o'clock is Limerick Cork. We might start in Munster, Séamus, given it's yourself with us. I've been looking at the permutations this morning, but I guess we can essentially say if Tip beat Waterford as we would expect, Tip would join Clare in a Munster final, and then it's essentially a straight shootout between Limerick and Cork to progress in the championship. So there's going to be a big faller this weekend, Séamus.
Yeah, that's how you look at it. That's how you expect it. It really would be something that would be extraordinarily unexpected for Waterford to produce something against Tipperary, considering the low ebb that they're at. Nothing's impossible, but I would expect Tip to be playing for that place with Clare in the Munster final, and Limerick and Cork really looking for progression, looking to get through to the Lee McCarthy stages. I think that's what they're playing for. It's incredibly high stakes for the last round. It's been a terrific championship so far. So the last weekend is fitting.
Is there any concern in Limerick, or is it kind of going relatively to plan? Because I know John Kiley would have seriously targeted the league campaign, and it's probably going to pay dividends if later on in the championship. But they weren't bad last weekend. It's coming in drips and drabs.
Yeah, so are people concerned? Listen, the plan is always to win every game. I think that's every team. If they're telling you anything different, well then that's not the plan. So is it for me? There was really positive things against Tipperary. Again, to be in a winning position in the end, having lost a man in the frantic closing stages, in a scrap like that, to even have been in the position to be in a point ahead was a great place to be. Graham O'Cahey made an incredible impact when he came in. It was great to see him. From a personal perspective, great to see Graham come in and make the impact that he's made so often before. But it has come in dribs and drabs. Cathal O'Neill was a huge plus for me out of the game. I suppose his performance has been coming. I think it's been promised for a while in the league. His first couple of games in the championship were tough for him. Didn't really get into it, but really gave Ronan Maher all sorts of problems talking about one of the premier defenders in the country. So yeah, there was good and bad in the Tipperary game, but it really is the nature of the competition and the level of the competition of the teams around Limerick, I would say, more so than even themselves. It's a reflection of the standard in Munster. Going into a game against Cork, who are so unpredictable, I would say, for them to play as well as they did against Clare and not get a result is going to be tough. I think they were really, like, that Dermot Ryan point was superb to kill their hopes. But they have it all to play for against Limerick, and again, historically they haven't feared the green and white. So travelling up to the Gaelic grounds just won't have the same deterrent as some other counties.
Is there a fear in Limerick, Séamus? Like, Limerick were the shortest price favourites basically to win the Hurling All-Ireland in years and years and years. I think after the league final they were about 4-7, and probably an overreaction, but you take they struggled to be 14-man Waterford, which looks a terrible result now really in hindsight. Cork, as you say, are unpredictable, so there's a really realistic chance here that Limerick are going to just go out without getting out of the Munster Championship. And how would that sit in the province, in the county, in light of obviously the success that you've had, because this should be a fear, I guess.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like, the hurling public is a hurling public. After the Waterford game, I had several people, one of them particularly a woman in her late 50s, come up to me and she goes, "Well, they gave us a good run. It's over now, I suppose." I was like, lads, we had won the game. We had played poorly, but listen, to me, especially the early stages of the Munster Championship were always going to be hard because of the league final. Because of the effort that they'd given to it. I am surprised at the level of performance. I thought that they would be further along, but historically in the years gone past, we'll say the last 3-4 years, they have gotten better as the year has progressed, and I'm hoping that, we'll say, if we can get a result against Cork, and I'd be, listen, I think that they will, personally, I think that they will get a result against Cork, that it might actually be a very good route to go, to get a quarterfinal, to get a route that gives them more games and more of a chance to warm the engine up. But they've hurled a lot of hurling miles collectively, and when you're in a competition that is as competitive as it is, I thought Clare have been superb, really. Outside of the three wobbler goals, I would say, that they conceded in the first half against Tipperary, they've been exceptional. They've been really, 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 really good. Hurled at a very, very high standard. So, they've really deserved their Munster final berth. And then, Tipperary are again, Liam Cahill has them raised. They've got a great blend. I think they have a really good blend of the under-20s, under-21 success that they had with Liam Cahill and the established players, like even Bonner Maher now I thought he had a really big impact and caused a lot of problems for Limerick early in the first half in Semple Stadium. So they've got a really, really good mix of youth and experience there. And then Cork are scoring goals for fun, going out of games for long periods, looking like they're written off, and then all of a sudden making these charges. So even against Tipperary below Cork, but even especially against Clare, I suppose what got them against Clare is that they just couldn't get their nose in front. They couldn't get that point to go ahead at any stage in the second half, and I think that was ultimately, that's how Clare really got over the line. So but Limerick, for me, they haven't tapped their potential yet. There's been a couple of really positive things, but there's been a couple of negative things too. Losing Sean Finn has been hard. Regardless of the caliber of person coming in to replace him, it's difficult to have a player like him missing, and then see Mark Keogh and Jake Morris play as well as they did. So listen, it's the nature of the competition. Maybe a little bit of fatigue on the Limerick perspective, but they get a result against Cork and the road opens up ahead of them. Is
it mental or physical fatigue? Because the narrative around Limerick has been, look at how young the panel is. Basically, they're going to win All Ireland left, right, and centre. But as you mentioned, Séamus, compare Leinster to Munster at the moment. You can't just turn up at 90-95% and win in Munster. So if you're a little bit off.
Well, unfortunately, you can if you're playing Waterford at the moment. But if you're playing anybody else, you need to be 100%. And the margins, for there to be 2 draws and 2 1-point games after that, to me speaks to the nature of the competition. And the Munster Championship has been like that. I saw a great table during the week of Clare have the most wins in Munster. Limerick have done okay. Limerick have drawn games. Limerick have had 4 draws in the last 5 years. So it's a tricky format against good teams. So you can't show up in anything but your best. And you've got all these different playing styles that match up differently against the other counties. So like Clare's style, for whatever reason, matches up better against Limerick than it does against Tipperary. Clare have always struggled with Tipperary. So it's a strange dynamic. Limerick normally do better against Tip than they do against Clare, and then again Cork can go either way, depending on what you get. So it's a really, really tough competition, and it's I suppose it's decades and almost a century in the making.
We've a couple of comments in this morning as well. ML89 says, think someone will land the knockout blow in Limerick this year. Could be Kilkenny, Galway, Clare or Tip, but it won't be Cork. Limerick to win by 4 this weekend. And also a question, I suppose, for yourself, Seamus. Will Kiley drop Hegarty again this year?
It's possible. Cathal O'Neill now is actually after making that a possibility. I really had a strong thought during the Tip game that the time for maybe trying the likes of Keane Lynch midfield, bringing Kyle Hayes up to the half forward line just to try something different, to try and jolt that line into kind of into something that resembled the strength that we've had in the last couple of years. Because our half forward line, and I've said this repeatedly, Limerick do well on our puck outs and our ability to win the middle, particularly collisions in the middle, particularly our strength around there. And we haven't been winning the middle third in the Munster Championship. We did in the league, but that was a different competition. But yeah, it's possible. You're owed for whatever reason, and these are humans. Like, so we all have periods of form and periods where we're not as good, and just it's not clicking for Garrod. And he's had to put up with an awful lot of rubbish off the field as well, in terms of rumours of deep the panel and things like that, which is that's never helpful, and it's never good for your state of mind when you're trying to play. So it's one of those things where maybe you try something different. I do feel that the fact that Limerick have succeeded for as long as they have with more or less the same starting 15 is a potential weakness. It does help teams plan for you a bit more, and throwing something in different might actually help them from a predictability standpoint, and also trying to get the best out of Keane. So I can see Keane Lynch is doing his utmost, and I suppose the injuries have interrupted his flow, his rhythm, his momentum, and maybe a stint midfield where he's excelled before. Maybe that would actually be a good thing for him. So yeah, it's possible.
How straightforward or otherwise is it for a Limerick hurler these days to live a normal life if you live in Limerick, with all the celebrity that entails at this stage? Well,
it's all relative, really. How hard is it to be a Leinster rugby player in Dublin? It's a Dublin footballer in Dublin, a Mayo footballer in Mayo. You draw attention, and I suppose the good thing about hurling and football is with our amateur players is that we get to live with them. Their jobs are typically a lot of them are in the community, a lot of them are in classrooms, in schools. So you've access to these people, so it's not that difficult. I think, to be fair, Limerick has been a fairly good place to be. Now it's the only trap that you're going to fall into is the overwhelming positivity of the last few years, and maybe a bit of uncertainty and a bit of nerves and a bit of trepidation this year with the results of the Munster Championship. I still think once you go into the unit, once you go into the dressing room, that you really do kind of diffuse a lot of that noise. I'm a big believer in it. I know that they work very hard on that, on tuning out the noise, the external, I suppose what they call BS. I'm going to say it in a PC way, or a polite way here, but that's part of the setup. Part of the setup is knowing and acknowledging the distractions that are around you, and I suppose the talk and the narratives that you can't control. So for me, it's just part and parcel. I think they've done it now for an extended period of time, so that it's part and parcel of.
The action in Leinster is fascinating as well this weekend, Séamus, to be fair, because I mean, you've got at the top end of things Galway and Kilkenny and Dublin, I suppose, depending on what happens, vying for a place in the Leinster final. Galway and Kilkenny in the driving seat for those positions. But at the bottom, I mean, Wexford's shock loss to Westmeath last week, having been 16 points, I think it was, up at half time.
I think
was it at one point they were 17 up. Yeah, insane stuff. And they do know a draw at home to Kilkenny this weekend would be enough to save them from dropping to the Joe McDonagh. But if they were to lose Wexford, they'd require Westmeath to at least draw at home to Antrim. So look, permutations aside, Séamus, how big a blow would it be if Wexford were to drop to the Joe McDonagh Cup? Like, is this the sort of thing that would set them back years?
Nah, listen, it'd be a massive blow. Like, there's no maybe, because the fall happened in Offaly before people realised what it actually was, and look how long it took them to recover, and you can see them now doing extremely well at underage level and minor hurling and at under 20s, but to see them now on the Joe McDonagh to actually try and complete their resurrection is a good thing. It's a good thing for hurling. It's a good thing for everybody involved, I would say, in Offaly. But that took them years. And what the problem is, when you're going down, it's a very divisive thing to happen. So it rarely ends with everybody banding together to come together and pull you out of it in the beginning. In the beginning, it leads to division and all sorts of breakdown. Even just for the Limerick perspective, in 2010, when we went down to Division 2 in the National Hurling League, it took us 5 years to get out of it, of Division 2. And the restructuring of the leagues and different things happened, but it was a very divisive thing. So it's not something that Wexford want. They don't want to be staring that in the face. And Kilkenny are not they're not a compassionate group. They're not going to be thinking of poor Wexford. Like they're to me. They are what they are. They're going to Wexford for a result to close out their campaign. An impressive campaign, I would say. They should have beaten Galway, I thought.
Are they contenders, Séamus?
100%, no question. So the comment there about someone could land a knockout blow on Limerick, I agree with that. It's very possible. And Kilkenny are as likely as anybody. Galway can do the same. I think that the Galway-Dublin game will be very revealing, because Dublin played well against Kilkenny, played very well against Kilkenny. With real, I think Micheál Donoghue, what I saw from that Dublin team was, a belief that they could contend, and then the execution of the skills. For me, it was a really, really good performance. I don't think 6 points was the margin between Dublin and Kilkenny. It was one of those things where Kilkenny hit 7 points in a row in the second half. At a time when Dublin looked like they were really coming into it, and Dublin still managed to stay at it at the end, and there was no whimper at the end. They really, really did fight to the end. So that Dublin-Galway game is another measuring stick for Dublin and their progress, but it's also for Galway. Then how serious are they? Because to me it's a good game. The Galway-Dublin game, a very, very interesting game for both teams. Galway will want to show their mettle, and Dublin then will want to see how close are they, and was the Kilkenny game, can they repeat the performance? Because if they can repeat the performance, they'll trouble Galway. There's no question.
Yeah, it's going to be an incredible weekend of hurling. So 2:00 on Sunday for those Leinster matches, and 4:00 for the Munster games on Sunday afternoon as well, with the Joe McDonagh Cup final between Carlow and Offaly tomorrow. Séamus, brilliant stuff as always. Thanks for hopping on.
Thanks, lads.
Good stuff. Séamus Hickey there, the former Limerick hurler, joining us on Friday mornings OTB AM at 8:18 AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. A Neon Night edition available now. We'll be back after these ads talking Man United Chelsea with Samuel Luckhurst.
OTB AM,
the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
OTB Rugby.
I do not see how a situation where Raj is going to be managing Ireland before Paulie.
Paul's next.
Yeah, in my eyes, I think that progression piece is all important. Who knows what's coming down the line? I would definitely suggest that Raj might have to hold on, and then I don't know necessarily if those two work as a unit.
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
19 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning's OTB AM with myself and Johnny Ward with you as always till 10 a.m. Johnny, we might touch on the League of Ireland, some big games tonight. So we've got from 7:45 Bows, Shelbourne, Cork against Shamrock Rovers, Drogheda take on UCD, and it's Pats against Dundalk. And then tomorrow evening's game is Sligo Rovers against Derry City. What's the game that's jumping out to yourself?
It's Pats and Dundalk.
Yeah,
Shane,
John Daly's start has been.
John Daly's start, people might know much about John Daly. He was He's quite a colourful career. He was one of the first, I think, Southern Irish to play for Rangers, which to me I'm not really big.
First Irish Catholic, I think.
Yeah. So I'm not like SPL doesn't really float my boat or whatever. And that was at a time when Rangers was rising literally from the ashes. But he then pursued a coaching career that brought him to obviously Scotland, Scandinavia, and the vicissitudes of the way sport works, where he was brought in by Tim Clancy, and Tim Clancy, whatever way you want to call his departure from Pats, he left. John Daly took the job on an interim basis, quickly said, I want this job, and you can like it or lump it, and they've given him the job. And there will be suggestions that Pats is a demanding place to work. Stephen O'Donnell left in controversial circumstances. Tim Clancy came in pretty quickly. He didn't last all that long, and I don't think he did a bad job, but he didn't last all that long. Daly's come in, serious underage talent. Like, they have links with, we'll talk maybe about the 17s at one point, but like Pat's, accounting for both of the scores.
Yes, Amelia and Luke Kerry,
like really, really, really good talent. Players that probably aren't a million miles off playing relatively regularly for the senior team, particularly in Amelia's case. And it is an exciting job. And the thing is about Pats, since the cup final the season before last, they've really maintained very good crowds in Inchicore, like regularly 4,000 to 5,000. They're doing a lot more work with sort of work around the community. And then obviously they welcome Stephen O'Donnell back to Dundalk, back to Inchicore tonight, and he hasn't gotten a nice reception, and he'll take that as part of the job. But it's been a fascinating season, and Shamrock Rovers losing at home to Drogheda last week
throws it wide open.
It definitely reminds us that it's not a foregone conclusion yet, as much as I think they'll win the league. Great night action, Bowl Shelbourne as well. That's the live game on Virgin. Unfortunately, I'll be not unfortunately, but I'm racing tonight in Limerick. But I'll be on the way back. I'll have Virgin on watching.
Racing yourself, are you?
Racing.
No, you're not racing yourself. You'll be at the racing.
I'm at the race in Limerick, but I'll be keeping tabs on the League of Ireland action on the way back.
We'll hopefully touch back on the League of Ireland before the end of today's show, but standing by at 21 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning's OTBAM is Samuel Luckhurst from the Manchester Evening News. Samuel, how are things?
Good morning. Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks.
I mean, we have to ask Sam straight away. I mean, it's all about Evan Ferguson, really. Are Man United going to sign Evan Ferguson?
I don't think so this summer. I think that he's been a player of interest for quite some time now, and naturally so. And the way looking at United's front line and the way you can see it evolving next year and the year after, you can completely see him being a player of interest to them and someone who would slot into that team. And there's always an outside chance this summer, given with Kane and Osman, although they are two high tier targets, they're two very difficult targets to attain as well. So it might be that United have to look at a little bit lower down the ladder in terms of more attainable strikers, but still quality strikers. That said, I think with Ferguson, it's probably in United's best interest and also Brighton's best interest that he's given a complete full season in the Premier League to see how he gets on.
It's funny as well, Shane, I think, like, you're, what age are you? 29. So you would have missed to an extent like the Man United like hysteria in the early to mid 90s, and I definitely think, Sam, in Ireland, and I think, Sam, that had an awful lot to do with Dennis Irwin and Roy Keane. It was like Manchester United became a team that so many Irish people could relate to, and you can imagine, like, if Ferguson became a stalwart there, the difference that would make as well.
Yes, the the team are possibly coming over to Dublin for a pre-season friendly in early August, and I'd argue that doesn't happen often enough. I think the last time that happened was in 2017 when they played Sampdoria at the Aviva, and the reason why it doesn't happen is, as you just alluded to, there aren't many Irish players who play for United anymore, which is a pity given the strong connection between Ireland and United and some of the great players who've played for them. There was maybe a slight ripple effect when Paddy McNair, I know he plays for Northern Ireland, but when he got in the team, and I mean Paddy McNair was never good enough to play for United. He only played because Louis van Gaal had a very curious selection policy with the academy players. But you did have a lot of enthusiasm in Northern Ireland just because all of a sudden here was an Irish player playing for Man United again. And I completely agree with Ferguson. There would be immense appeal to it. You've seen it with other core territories. I mean,
might have just lost Samuel briefly there, I think, on the line. Just the line seems to have frozen. It's an interesting one in terms of United's targets. Like Harry Kane is the name that look, Evan Ferguson, of course.
Who do you sign, Kane or Ferguson? Because it's just so different parts of their career. Like,
from an Irish perspective, I'd love them to sign Ferguson, but like I don't. It's not realistic, I don't think, this season. I'd love him to stay at Brighton.
So would I.
A year. I think working under Roberto De Zerbi again for another season can only be a good thing for him.
I actually would love Liverpool to sign Evan Ferguson. That'd be you know.
Well, they're already getting Alexis McAllister. I mean, they're raiding Brighton if they're going for Ferguson as well.
And all you need then is a press conference where McAllister says, "Yes, it would be great if Evan played with me again." And it's like, you know, Liverpool are all over back and bringing Ferguson.
Yeah, we have Samuel back on the line. Samuel, I guess the thing is that last night's result secures top 4 for Manchester United for next season. So again, makes it easier to bring in targets. Interesting reading Eric Ten Hag's comments afterwards. I think he was reminded Arsenal had a tendency to be satisfied finishing for top 4, and his response, not good enough for me. So clearly, albeit he's delighted with the top 4, not resting on his laurels there.
No, he even said, quote, "We need better players," which no United fan would dispute that. And certainly looking again at that performance last night, I think I said to my colleague maybe about 10 seconds before the goal went in, the second goal, and I said Sancho and Martial have been United's weakest players again, and then one gets the assist and one gets the goal. But it was pretty straightforward stuff from Casemiro's pass, and players like Sancho and Martial. I think the Sevilla defeat, as bad as it was for United, I think that could be one of the best things that happens to them, because not only did it take them out of the Europa League, and really looking ahead to that FA Cup final next week, if they had a Europa League final in the middle of it, that would have compromised the build-up and the preparations. But also that was a night where squad players were starting in the absence of first teamers, and it just confirmed what everyone knew, that a lot of those squad players are not up to it. Martial is certainly not up to it. That's why they want a striker. Sancho, the club looks too big for him. In recent weeks, the £80 million captain has not even come into the conversation when it comes to playing whether he plays at centre half. And if Harry Maguire does go, then United would need a centre back. And ultimately, the problem is the ownership situation. There is money set aside for a striker, as there always has been, and there needs to be, and it remains to be seen who that striker will be. That is a priority. Ten Hag does want a younger and dynamic midfielder to come in, because with Casemiro and Eriksen, everyone knows their names. Everyone also knows their age. They're 31. They'll be 32. Midway through next season, and the youngest midfielder is McTominay, and he's probably also the most sellable, to the point that if United were to receive £30 million for him, it would be remiss of them to reject that, because they are going to have to use the funds from outgoings to finance the majority of the incomings with the profitability and sustainability rules. So the prospect of them signing Kane, Mount and Rice in the same summer is just, it's cloud cuckoo land stuff, really. It would be staggering if that somehow happened. I don't think any club can really get away with that level of finance. We've seen Chelsea try in the last couple of windows, but they are under a hell of a lot of pressure now to shift sellable assets, and it has to be done by late June because of the financial quarter as well. And United are in quite a similar situation. Although they've had a much better season than Chelsea, they've got to shift a lot of players, get a lot of players off their books, and there's still not that much of a market for for a lot of them, quite frankly. And you'd maybe look at Wan-Bissaka, who started the last 4 games and is probably a nose ahead of Dallo at the moment in terms of starting right backs, but there's still a possibility that he could be sold because his reputation has recovered. He would improve the majority of Premier League defences. There are Premier League clubs interested in him, and they've shown interest over the last 6 months or so. And again, if a £30 million offer comes in, it would be daft of United to turn their noses up at that. So we say it every year, it's a big summer at United, but this is going to be a particularly big summer with the ownership situation yet to be resolved.
So, Samuel, I know the stats are skewed by the game in Anfield, but Manchester United have finished third at the moment with a plus 14 goal difference. 56 goals is completely anomalous. So is this a good or a bad thing, where clearly they can score a lot more goals? They've gotten their defensive issues practically sorted. Like, how do you look at these stats? Because it's the 56 goals figure just stands out a mile for a team in the top 4.
It's derisory. Last night was the first time they'd scored 4 goals in a league game all season. Their biggest win all season has been 4-1, and that was against Betis and Chelsea last night, of course. Compare it to, I mean, as I said before, I think Liverpool, when they're at their optimum, they are one of the most ruthless teams on the planet, and United is still nowhere near that level, and yet they've finished above Liverpool this season. The defence has improved, but there have been these sporadic shellacking at Brentford, at City, at Liverpool, to a much lesser extent Newcastle as well, where they lost 2-0, but they were so anemic, and Ten Hag actually bracketed the Sevilla defeat with Liverpool, Brentford and City as well. It's a quirk of their lack of goals this season that someone has scored 30 goals in the season, which hadn't happened at United since Ferguson's last season with Robin van Persie. And a lot of Rashford's goals, the vast majority of them have been crucial goals. They've gained them points, but they do. If you look at history, most teams, they have got 2 goal scorers. If you're going for the title, or if you're winning the title, you've got 2 players who are going to get you 25 goals plus a season, and United don't have that. And really, looking at Martial, he's the number 9 there. He's been there for 8 years now as well. He turns 28 this year, and yet there are still people who are of the mindset that, well, give him a bit of time, he can come good. He really should have been sold a long time ago, and the only reason he's probably still at United is because he was unsellable in the summer, and given the situation also with the attack in the summer, it seemed pretty clear United were not going to sign a number 9, so they had to make do with him. And in fairness to Ten Hag, he got a tune out of him in pre-season, and he was looking pretty good, but he's been too injury prone all season, and United are looking to get him out of the club in the summer as well. But again, that's going to be difficult because he's not completed 90 minutes in Premier League games since January 2021. I don't think that last night was only his 9th goal of the season. He's not broken double figures in the season for goals since 2019-20, and you would say, excuse me, that's probably skewed by a lot of the COVID games where you're playing these training ground environments, and it did feel a lot easier for certain players. It was almost as if they preferred it without having supporters there. And he's also been extremely injury prone this season. I think he's had 5 separate injuries. So although his technical ability is good, he is a very tough sell, and there's probably a small market out there as well that would take him. But I'm still not sure necessarily that what club out there is itching to spend £30 million to sign Anthony Martial. It remains to be seen. And as I said, United will get a striker in, but I think given that they could finish 3rd this season, there's going to be certainly an expectation among some of the supporters to get a lot closer to City next season. I think a challenge is possibly pushing it. I think it would be prudent to consolidate their place in the top 4. Liverpool will get better. Chelsea might get their act together. With Tottenham, you never know. But they've got to aim higher for next season, and immediately that means you've got to get a goal scorer in who's proven. So although they're looking at the lad at Atalanta and Mawani at Eintracht Frankfurt as well, is someone that they've been keeping tabs on just because he might be on the move this summer. it really is a lot more logical to try somehow to force through a move for Harry Kane, but United are very hesitant about that because it means dealing with Daniel Levy.
Yeah, well, that's true. And Jose Mourinho clearly had his comments with Daniel Levy yesterday. Not a fan whatsoever. Samuel, the FA Cup final, I guess, now takes precedence in United's minds on Saturday week in Wembley. The chance of a second trophy this season, albeit against the juggernaut of Manchester City. But I guess the two-parter question, but how do you think United will fare in that cup final? Can they cause an upset? And also, we saw Anthony in a bit of distress last night with his serious-looking ankle injury, and Luke Shaw taken off at half-time with what appeared to be a back injury. Would you expect either or both of those to be involved?
I think his race looks run for the season, unfortunately, and that could have dire consequences on how United approach that game, because when they beat City in January, Anthony didn't start, but Fernandes started on the wing, and already you can see that happening, that Fernandes has to start there, because the problem they've got in midfield is that as good as Casemiro and Eriksen are, you wouldn't necessarily pit them against City's midfield. Casemiro has to stay there, but in the January derby, Eriksen actually played as the number 10. I think it was the first time he started as the number 10 all season for United, and this is a player who is synonymous with the role. And it might be that Fred comes into the midfield or McTominay comes into the midfield, so they have got someone who's more energetic, who can get about City, who can help United with their pressing as well. And Fernandes is such a workaholic that you can play him on the wing, but it seems like whenever he's played on the wing games this season, he has still had a key impact or a key contribution in the game. The problem, obviously, with Anthony coming out is that your other winger is out of the pitch now. So Fernandes may have to switch wings, and then it's a case of playing the percentages, because there is going to be probably a starter who should not be starting that cup final. You either look to Sancho, who was underwhelmed for most of the season, and I just think United looks too big a club for him, or you've got Martial, who, although he scored last night, he audibly irked the supporters on 3 or 4 occasions, because, okay, he scored, but it was only a tap-in, and his overall performance was not the level that they expect of a Manchester United number 9. So there's a lot. Although Ten Hag has got a lot of options, he also needs, and also we're talking on the assumption that he's going to bring a midfielder in and play Eriksen as a number 10. He may have shown his hand already to Guardiola with that win in January, and although United played well in the first half, City still went 1-0 up in that game, and it was a pretty contentious goal that levelled it, with City wanting the offside, and then City mentally, they were stewing at the time, and then United went in for the kill and made it 2-1. So it's probably in their interest to do something that none of us can foresee. I mean, if we can read it, then you know that Guardiola will be able to read it. And I don't know what the alternatives are, really, because the quality of squad depth at United is just not good enough. There are only a handful of players that you would say Ten Hag is happy to depend on, who don't regularly start. I mean, Lindelof's on a very good run of form, having had quite an unfulfilling season, and there have been times when he probably should have played and he didn't play, but he seems a certain starter now. But it's all about that front six. It's, do you play Eriksen deep, or do you move him higher up? As I said, I think it's inevitable that Fernandes is going to play on the wing, but then do you go with Sancho? Do you play Rashford off the left? I think they've got to be mindful of who's the best equipped to go at Kyle Walker, which would be Rashford. So if you play Rashford on the left, that means logically you play Martial up front. And Ten Hag has said quite repeatedly that United play better with Martial. I think that might be they play better in spite of Martial, but they did play quite well in the first half in the January derby when Martial did start, but then he came off because of injury at half time. And that might be the way of playing the percentages, because then at least, although it's not ideal, in Sancho and Garnacho, you've got two players who have done very well off the bench this season, and I just suspect that with Garnacho, although he would be the fans' favourite to come in and start, and maybe Rashford playing up top, for an 18-year-old in an FA Cup final against Kyle Walker as well, you saw how he dealt with Vinicius Junior last week. It's probably prudent to keep Garnacho in reserve and then use him as a game changer.
Samuel, brilliant stuff as always. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
Samuel Luckhurst there of the Manchester Evening News, joining us on OTB AM on this Friday morning at 8:38 a.m.
Bit of martial law.
Martial law.
That one.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Very good, Johnny.
Having that one.
There's another one, similar pun on the back page there. Daily Star. The boy, BHOY, who would be king. Celtic fans, what do you make of these rumours? So Tottenham apparently have turned their attention to Celtic boss Ange Postecoglou after the latest snub from a managerial target. So Arnie Slut, the Feyenoord boss, had been strongly linked with the job of replacing Antonio Conte, but another setback. He's ruled himself out of a move to North London. This was yesterday. Speculation has helped him secure an extension to his contract with Feyenoord. Of course, they're after winning the Dutch Eredivisie title. Would Ange Postecoglou move from Celtic to Spurs? I'm not sure that's a move that, well, like, it would be exciting. I mean, from a neutral perspective, to see his style of football at Tottenham, but I think Celtic fans would be absolutely devastated to see him leave.
It's the Spurs situation is fascinating. There's so much going for it, but like the Levy thing does seem you look at the way Samuel spoke there, it would put off managers, I think, working 100%. At that club.
Listen to Mourinho yesterday.
Yeah.
He was like, if anyone hasn't seen these comments from Jose Mourinho yesterday, he's there in his Roma tracksuit press conference, and he's been asked, I don't know what he was asked, but he certainly was like, well, all of the clubs I've managed, I look back and have fond feelings for Porto, Inter, Real Madrid, Manchester United, all except Tottenham, he said, you know. And Mr. Levy, he kept referring to Mr. Levy clearly has a disdain for the man, and for his time at the club. The only club that he clearly has a little bit of disdain for that he's managed, but it was just interesting. But anyway, we'll move on. 8:40 a.m. on this Friday morning's OTBM. We're going to turn our attention to Gaelic football. Delighted to say David Brady joins us on the line this morning. Morning, David. How are things?
Ian, how's it going, buddy? How's things?
Keeping well. Thanks for hopping on. We haven't had the chance to chat to you since Mayo launched themselves back into the Sam Maguire race last weekend. I'm sure you're buzzing. The hype train has taken off again.
Well, that means Thomas the Tank is in full flow, without a doubt. It was, and like we talked this time last week, and we were going, you know, the permutations and, you know, what kind of a Mayo team we're going to turn up. But this was not really the ideal game that you'd want facing Munster champions, All-Ireland favourites, and a Kerry team that was nearly at full strength as such. And it turned out to be the ideal scenario, because it really has painted a picture for Mayo now and what they can do and what path is ahead of them. And it was, for me, if you have, you know, we were talking about the hype train, the engine room really turned up, and that was a big difference for me as well from a Mayo perspective. Your middle sixth contributed a massive amount more to what there has been in the last number of weeks and during the Connacht Championship. The likes of Matty Ruane, very, very dominant, really took the game by the scruff of the neck. You also had Jordan Flynn, who equally has, every time he seems to play at Kerry, his game just goes up that extra 2 or 3 notches. I think he was man of the match in February and just never got to that level of that standard again during the rest of the National League games. So he reproduced his form against Kerry again. That was very important. And you had the likes of Conor Loftus from a centre back position, really going forward at a lot of opportunities. Was, you know, we've talked about Conor as the +1 and who's marshalling the defence from a Mayo perspective. But he was given a little bit more free rein, and there was more others that kind of held that +1 role at times. So they handed over very well. And I think it was positive, and it creates that opportunity now for Mayo where they win their next 2 games. You look to win every game, but they can have that little bit of a break. And I think the break in the 6 weeks has done them the world of good. They've worked it very well from a player's perspective and a management perspective.
Is that the incentive, David? Because like I know a lot of people crab the format, but finishing first. You mentioned the break. You know, you have a game less as well. How did they approach? Because they're going to be Cork and Louth, simple as. So how did they approach that and keep their momentum up then for the next stage?
Johnny, there's nothing simple as with Mayo, let me tell you. You know that. and Cork and Louth will present their own challenges. But it had, and if you look at the way that the whole season has gone down, yes, it's a condensed season, but it is. There's no such thing as a free Christmas, because it's like December, January is flat out, and you're going February, March, April. There's no let up. And every team is kind of focusing on different things, but you got to think. But Kevin McStay is only in, so a new manager brings kind of that new momentum and that new focus, and it doesn't give you any time to just say, "Look, boys, I understand you, you understand me. We're well established in our game plan and what we want to produce." So it was 5 intensive months, without a doubt, for Mayo, culminating in a National League win, but. Come that Monday, after we were defeated by Roscommon, everything seemed gloom. But that 6 weeks, I know there was a number of fellas that were gone on the Tuesday morning over to Portugal, and did them the world of good to get that 2 weeks off. Now you kind of go, do you give 1 week, do you give 2 weeks? But you have a manager and a management team in Kevin McStay that goes, you know what, 2 weeks is important.
I think this is. He spoke about that actually after the game, but you do get the impression that the Mayo players actually really enjoy playing for this management team.
I did enjoy playing for Kevin McStay. Not that I've ever played for him or with him. He's a club man of mine in Ballina. But he just kind of he seems to have his finger on the pulse. Liam McHale is another one. Liam is just a joy to be around. Very, positive. There's fun in it, and there's a bit of joie de vivre about this Mayo team, and you need it in a setup. You need it in a camp. And again, you have Donny Buckley, who I think really has worked when he got his hands on them on that first night back. You can see what they're really trying to achieve, and that is, again, their link, and a lot of their link play wasn't very good. It wasn't very evident against Roscommon, but their angles of running, their support runners. And again, it was the runners that were like making 1, 2, 3 options coming off fast transition ball. That was a big thing from Mayo perspective. They had massively fast transition, but they kind of got ahead of a Kerry defence that were unable to set up in a number of times. But again, it is the mind is a lot to do with sport, and it was a Munster final for Kerry. It is, and was an emotional and personal few days for the Cliffords, and it just kind of, then you're kind of going, oh, we have to go and do this then, 2 weeks later, and it's nearly down off a high and trying to pump yourself up again. Now Mayo Killarney, first time in 20 odd years they've been defeated down there. It wasn't that Kerry disrespected, but it just that Mayo were at a different pitch, and we're only 9-10 weeks away from the end of the season, so it's a challenge for everyone. So it is on the Kerry team and the Kerry management, but to have that opportunity to get back on the bike again.
Tell you, one man who enjoys or seems to enjoy playing under Kevin McStay is Aidan O'Shea, David, because he's a man reborn almost, and he seems to have found his position as well. And I was listening to Colm Boyle on the show during the week with Joe, and he was talking about the fact that even during the league, whether they put Jason Foley on him or Dylan Casey on him, it didn't matter, because he was just having a field day, and the same happened last weekend. I think he picked up the Man of the Match award against Kerry last weekend. He looks like he's confident again this season.
He's confident, Shane, because I think he knows what's expected of him, and it's been laid out very clear. And I think he's confident because he knows that he has a role to play, and it's not the superhero role that I think, from centre back, midfield, centre forward, full forward, full back. Like, the only place he hasn't played is the goal.
Yes.
And Liam McHale had that problem, or people used to say it back when he was playing. I don't. Is he a full forward? Is he a midfielder? Is he a half forward? Is he? Sometimes when a manager is very forthright but very confident in your ability to say, you know what, Johnny, you're full forward, and you're my number one, and this is the 4 things I need from you. And the one thing that Mayo are getting, and Aidan O'Shea is providing, is a very simplistic work rate. He is absolutely tigerish in his defence, in his pushing up on kickouts, in his directing that kind of forward line. He's very experienced. He knows the calls. He knows when the time is to push up, sit back, step off, and it's paying rewards and dividend. But it's kind of that flow of long ball, direct ball, and you have a target man. I think when you have 6 foot, I don't like it. Aidan is a big man.
Yeah.
6'3" odd, 4 nearly. And you're thinking in your own mind, and as Markham, you're going, right, I need to make sure that I am touch tight, or this guy's not going to get the ball over my head. A lot of the ball that's gone in from my own perspective is a nice 15-20 yard hand pass straight in front of him. So that the defender is betwixt and between. Do I sit behind, or is it high or is it low? And a lot of it is into his chest, and he's going left and he's right, and he's getting that little bit of confidence with the freeze also from his on his left foot.
Any suggestion that he would have called today? He's 33 this summer, and you look at Keegan, obviously last season, but very, very disappointing. Was there any suggestion in his head, like he didn't look like he was improving, put it that way?
No, and good point. And again, it's probably freshness is a great food for thought. And again, I probably had it in the latter stages of my career where I had Mickey Moore in 2004, and the following year was John O'Mahony. 2006, and then the following year was John O'Mahony. So you're kind of, it gives you that little bit of a hook, or that little bit of an incentive or an appetite. And I think that the mix, the recipe then of Stephen Rochford there and Donny Buckley, Donny would have a great understanding and a relationship with Aidan and vice versa. And it's a perfect mix with a little bit of a challenge. And the challenge was very forthright and very, I suppose, straight from Kevin McStay and his management team. Said, this is what we want from you. This is where we want it. And this is the only thing we want from you. And I think that gives you that confidence as you go on. But it definitely ends without a doubt best year.
Don't know which of these games, David, this weekend are jumping out to you, but just so people are aware of the fixtures. So tomorrow, Saturday, the group stages. The other game in Mayo's group, Louth and Cork, play at Park Talton in Navan at 3 o'clock. You've got Armagh Westmeath at the Athletic Grounds at 4:45 tomorrow, and then at 7 p.m, Derry take on Monaghan up in Celtic Park in Derry, and then the only game on Sunday is in Croker, Dublin against Roscommon from 4. Guess it'll be interesting to see where Derry and Armagh are both at after that hectic enough Ulster final.
I'm telling you, that was a very emotional, zapping week as well, with all that was in the headlines and all that was being talked about and read about. And what a game! In all fairness, and if anyone, I did hear one or two. I'm going, oh my God. It had absolutely everything.
This is entire contrast. Joe Brawley says you might as well just turn off the last 10 minutes. So you're totally on the other end of this.
I was going, what's the setup? What are they doing? The first score was, I don't know, what was the minutes? But it was textbook. And that's, and you're going, is it unfortunate that's the way football is going, Johnny? But you're going, it was textbook. They weren't just giving the ball away and creating this up and down. They were controlled. They knew their form. They knew their setup. And I thought it was like there was every time there was a score, back to 2, back to 1, back to 2, back to 1. It might take 3.5 minutes for one score. Derry keeping the ball for that length of time, but very structured, very kind of regimental, and very smart, but very good footballers. And we had the performance from McGuigan was just sublime, absolutely sublime. I thought it was a fantastic game of football. And there you're going, sure, every game is only exciting in the last 15 minutes. You're not going to be on the edge of your seat, but it was enthralling, intriguing, and it had so many subplots. I do think, Shane, and you'll be very glad to hear this. I think that Monaghan will. I cannot see being an 8 point like it was in the Ulster Championship. I think Monaghan have got a little bit of confidence back in their psyche, and I think how is Derry going to manage the emotion of again winning a fantastic, enthralling Ulster final? Now to go back in and go, all right, so we need to raise ourselves again. I think that's one question mark. And again, We talked about it last week. Armagh, Westmeath. Yes, Armagh will be licking their wounds and everything else, but it is from a psychological point of view. Westmeath hadn't the greatest year from a Division 3 perspective, but they're thereabouts. But I think there could be. It'll be very interesting to see how both Derry and Armagh get over that kind of massively explosive, emotive, and zapping Ulster final. It'll be, and thank God for the Ulster final, because there was damn all else from a provincial final perspective. Yeah. And I think it's if they scrap the provincials, we'll still keep Ulster, boys.
yeah, 100%. Hold on to Ulster.
Yeah, hold on to Ulster.
No surrender to the Ulster Championship.
Don't give Ulster to anyone. Yeah.
We'll hold on to it for now. David, great stuff. And as you say, look, that Derry Monaghan match takes on more significance when you look at Kerry Mayo last week, and teams want to finish top of their group to avoid that extra game. David, brilliant stuff as always. Thanks so much for hopping on.
Thanks, Shane. See you, Johnny. Right.
Thanks, David. They're getting them at a good time, were they? Because were they 7 points down in the other championship?
Yeah, in the previous meeting between Derry and Monaghan.
Yeah, bad start, and
Derry played well. They were shooting the lights out that day. Like, to be fair, McGuigan was again on form, but as David says, I can't see it being exactly the same. There'll be that high that Derry will have been on. Now, Derry have home advantage is the only.
Monaghan bring many up there.
Monaghan fans always travel. Yeah, and it's not too far to go up, so I think it'll be a decent game. It'll be a decent game Saturday evening, 7 p.m. as well. So
Hannon be there?
No, I tell you what, Johnny, we have a big cup final on Saturday.
Oh, Monaghan Town. Premier
Cup final tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Go to Keegan if anyone wants to head along. Monaghan Town versus Glasgow Villa. Glasgow Villa won the treble last year, so this is up against the juggernaut of Glasgow Villa. So it's not easy. My former club, I used to play for Villa when I was 16.
Oh wow,
so that's a bit of a.
There'd be like pigs' heads thrown at you and everything.
Yeah, the crowd, the massive
squealing crowd. Pig, of course.
Yeah, squealing pig, of course. Monaghan reference there for anyone familiar. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to check the score during football Saturday.
Yeah, get it on your live score app.
And JD will be all over it.
100%. I'll be sending in. I was going to say I'll be sending in updates. I'd like to think I'll be on the pitch and slightly busy. So yeah, it'll be an interesting match.
Best of luck, young man.
Cheers, Johnny. No, we're looking forward to it. It should be a decent game. The under-17s as well. We didn't really touch on, Johnny, the excitement of it. I mean, they play tomorrow against Spain, isn't it? The quarterfinals. It's
just class, and it was funny because they were battered in their opening game, and Stephen Bradley was. I think Stephen Bradley's a brilliant talker about football, and he's just come through so much in terms of his own playing career and his own ups and downs in management. But he was just like, let's not overreact to the first game here, and do not judge an entire football story or football landscape on one game.
Yeah.
And by extension, then, I think Dan did a really good piece in the Independent, Dan MacDonald, about Liam Kearney, who's involved in Cork City. We can't now overreact to the successes since and the win over Hungary, which would have gotten a lot of people talking, because we still have, a system in this country that is not fit for purpose, because we came from nothing and we're trying to get to there, but we're probably somewhere in the middle at the moment. But to have all these players, and it's I'd be very proud that they're all playing in Ireland. That's happened kind of entirely by accident, because I would think mad people in Britain decided that Brexit was a good idea, and the consequence of that is Irish football is in a different place now, and just the style and the swagger of the way they play, and the young boy from Waterford in midfield, if I remember his name here, I know that let me think for his name here. He was chiefly involved in some of the play, and I know a lot of the highlights were the two Pats lads, but some of the other players in tigerish in midfield, and it's really exciting. Really exciting. Yeah. Let me get his name because this is annoying me now. But anyway, yeah.
We'll come back to that anyway before the end of the show. Colm's going to look for it as well for us. But at 8:57 a.m. on this Friday morning's OTB AM, delighted to welcome to the show the sports broadcaster Shebahn Aherne. Shebahn, how are things?
Hi, good morning. Yeah, very well. How are you?
Keeping well. Sure, it's Friday. We're buzzing here.
I know, same.
Buzzing for the end of the WSL season. It's fair to say the most exciting WSL season there has been.
I remember it was about maybe 10 years ago the trophy had to do the U-turn and head back because they don't know where it was going to end up on the final day of the season. But yeah, I think for where the game is, for how things have changed, especially over the last couple of years and what's happened since the Euros and getting into a World Cup, for me, absolutely, this is the best WSL I can remember. I've loved every minute of it. It's been excellent.
It's great to see on the final day, like, different things up for grabs between title and relegation, and even Europe as well. Although Man City would need a record win and Arsenal to lose, so that one's fairly wrapped up. In terms of the title, Shebahn, so Chelsea away to Reading, Manchester United away to Liverpool. Chelsea win and they win the league. Chelsea draw and they'll likely win the league because United will have to win by a significant goal margin against Liverpool. Hard to see Emma Hayes, Chelsea dropping points at this point in time.
If that happens, I'll genuinely eat my foot. I mean, that would be very, very strange if Reading are to beat Chelsea at the end of the season. But then, they're clawing their way back. It depends on Leicester's result as well. I don't see it ending any other way. Unfortunately, it looks like Reading are set to crash out of the WSL. I don't see how Chelsea do not beat them. Reading have been poor all season. There's a lot going on there at the club. I believe there's a lot of people losing their jobs. There's a lot of change. It's been a tough old time for them. And Emma Hayes, as Chelsea come into themselves that little bit more, towards this stage of the season, they are going all the way for the win, and I think they'll do it in style comfortably over Reading at the weekend.
It's funny watching some of the press conferences in the build up to this weekend, and you get the sense that there are mind games being utilised a little bit by both Emma Hayes and Mark Skinner. Emma Hayes saying Chelsea have been written off all season, but I'm not sure who's been really writing off Chelsea, have they?
I haven't heard anybody write off Chelsea. I mean, do that at your peril. I mean, perhaps a little bit of mind games going on. I think everybody's been so impressed with Manchester United and have given Mark Skinner flowers for that and the job that he's done. He deserves the credit, for the job that he's done this season. We'll see how it goes next season. If he loses Alessia Russo, the rumour is Una Bagé, she's off to Barcelona, going back home. It'll be a different side for next season, but they've achieved a lot. They've had a trip out to Wembley. We're top of the table for the majority of the season, and they've made Champions League football. So I think there's a huge amount of credit to Mark Skinner. Also the fact, maybe that's it. Maybe it's the fact that Emma Hayes has been the best for so long and unbeatable. And there's been a number of teams this season just around it and causing a bit of a problem and taking silverware. For me, that's just a testament to how the league is going. But I certainly didn't write off Chelsea. Did I? Maybe I did. Maybe I did at the beginning. Oh well, sorry, Emma.
Why didn't the men's team give her the job over Lampard altogether?
Oh my God, stop. I've said this so many times. There's one thing that I would like to happen in my lifetime. There's a number of things, but one of them would be to see Emma Hayes or Serena Wiegman or another manager of high calibre take a job in the men's game or even get given that opportunity. And I have this debate so often with people that I work with here, and it's like, well, it's just, they would have to go and get experience working with the men somewhere. And I go, why? And they're like, because men are bigger and stronger. And I'm like, and what about the backroom staff that study all of that, who are with them on that journey? I think the manager has a point to prove when it comes to managing. And we've had this debate on and off. And I actually think it'd be incredible one day to see Emma Hayes move to, well, maybe not. I want to keep her in the WSL as well, but I think she could do that job. She could manage England all day long.
Would she like a job like that? Because like we saw in Ireland, like Lisa Fallon getting very, very high prominent roles at Galway United and Cork City and so forth. Not quite the manager's job, but like not far off, to be fair. So it's not like a million miles off, but it will say, like, with the success that Emma has had, where to next?
Well, that's it. I mean, I guess it would be abroad. Would it be abroad? Would it be going to manage another team, a Champions League threatening side? She has a little boy, who's probably just starting school at this moment in time. So she has a lot to consider there. However, she has been asked these questions before, and she says, why would I leave Chelsea? We are the best football club. We have won a lot. I think she's obviously got her eyes on the prize of the Champions League. And maybe if she can tick that off her list, maybe the next step would be to go into men's football. But I think she's certainly happy with where she is, and she doesn't feel to go to men's, it's better. And I love her approach on that. I guess for me, I want to see one day, knowing that the men's game will welcome women in there as well, because we see male coaches all the time. It's completely normal in women's football. Hope Powell's just gone to work with is it under England under 19s for England. That'll be interesting to see how that transpires. But Emma Hayes, I think, could do a job. Wiegman could do a job any day of the week in the men's game.
Yeah,
we just haven't seen it, have we? So nobody knows what to expect, or we don't give the opportunity because we haven't seen it yet. If you can't see it, you can't be it. Until that changes, well, there's going to have to be somebody to do it first, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I remember Emma Hayes being linked to Wimbledon a couple of years ago, and she refused those offers. She, I think at the time, said she'd never take a lower team, which I mean is fair from her perspective, considering what she's achieved. I think you mentioned Ona Battier there. She was on the Koi Gig pod with herself and Off the Ball this week. Not giving too much away about her future, but it appears, Shebahn, that she's off to Barcelona. That is a bit of a blow, considering Mark Skinner and Manchester United are I guess trying to push on next season even further, but that's a blow if she departs to Barca.
Oh yeah, because she's gravy. I mean, she's absolutely brilliant, and has had a brilliant season, and has been key to where they've been this season. It's my understanding that she has agreed personal terms with Barcelona, but nothing has been signed as of yet. But I also believe that a number of WSL clubs could be interested in it as well. Would it be the case that she stays here and we get a bit of a shock when it comes to the summer transfer window? From what I understand, she has agreed with personal terms, but anything's possible, especially with the WSL just now. We know the money's getting put into it now. We know things have changed at Arsenal with Rafa Souza departure as well. Perhaps they could come in. I wouldn't quite write her off out of this country and out of this league yet.
Rusha as well. Rusha Littlejohn, of course, leaving Aston Villa. I know she announced it on your own YouTube channel as well. So a sad moment for her, but I guess even listen to her comments as well. She has very firmly an eye focused on the World Cup, and even in recent weeks, you know, the fear of getting injured for any player at this point is so high that you just can't take that risk, and clearly that's on Rusha's mind.
Absolutely. I mean, Rusha's had more clubs than Tiger Woods. You know, she has frequented this league for a long time and has been around for quite some time. And we're turning 33 in the summer, and she's aware that when Rusha's fit, she's like, I'm the fittest. You know, I'm right up there. But when my body doesn't let me do it, it's so frustrating. All footballers, all athletes can relate to that. And when she knew that she wasn't getting re-signed by Villa, she had a conversation with Vida and said, look, I don't want to jeopardise anything. You know, she's made a glass at this moment in time. She wants to be at the World Cup. She wants to represent Ireland. She's so focused on that. She thinks, well, if you put your body on the line at Aston Villa, and you know there's a niggle and an injury or a knock, and that puts her out of Vida Pauw's squad, then that would be a huge issue for her. So I think it's quite a mature decision to make, and I think that's the thing. We'll talk about the number of players departing their clubs in a second, but there's a senior experienced level of players that are now being let go, and Rusha will be one of them. And I get it, she's turning 33. They're probably looking for 23-year-olds. She's had her fun, you know, she's had her run at these clubs, and I think, go for it. You know, focus, work with Vida, work with the Ireland squad, work with the management and the staff there, and make sure your body's the best it can be for getting to that World Cup, and don't jeopardise that. It hurts. I mean, I think I hurt for her more than she hurts. She's quite mature about it. She goes, this is football, you know, and you know, I've not been re-signed, and that's the way it goes. I'm okay with it. For me, I think it's just more like, you know, what does that mean? What's next? And at this age, it's tough. It's tough, right, to get another club.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess you don't know how often World Cups come around, certainly towards the latter end of your career, so you got to look after yourself and jump on that opportunity when you get it. You mentioned the number of players, Shebahn, leaving clubs. I guess from an Irish perspective, yesterday we were watching the names come in. Megan Connolly and Megan Walsh leaving Brighton, Megan Campbell to leaving Liverpool. So
it's a Megan
mass Megan exodus.
Magic of Megan,
I actually am very surprised Megan Connolly and Megan Campbell, because they've been part of those sides for Liverpool and Brighton for quite some time. Going through the list of players who have left Brighton or have been released from Brighton: Megan Connolly, Megan Walsh, Victoria Williams, Dan Carter, Kaylee Green. The experience is that's 400 appearances between them. You know, all kind of released from their duties. Players who have been at that club for quite some time. Victoria Williams, I won't look at Brighton the same way. You know, I saw her last night at an award ceremony, and I thought, wow, like again, it's just that senior age. I don't know if a number of clubs now are looking and going, okay, we want to explore new opportunities. We've got access now to the younger players coming through. Is there a longevity thing? Are they looking at contracts differently? And I do think a number of senior players are over the age of, say, 26 will be threatened if they're out of their contracts this time of the year.
Yeah, it's a nervy one for a lot of players waiting on contracts and decisions and trying to decipher where their next move is going to be. There's also a big, I guess, a sad moment for football this weekend. Izzy Christensen announcing her retirement. So a bit of a legend with Leon, of course, but with Everton, her final game is going to be against City at the weekend. She's already won WSL title, an FA Cup, 2 FA WSL Continental Cups as well, not to mention the League and Champions League she won with Leon. So a sad moment for football, but what a servant Izzy Christensen has been.
Absolutely. I mean, an outstanding footballer who's been around and seen it all and been part of that change through the years as well and led by example. I'm sure she'll get a great send-off. The thing is about Izzy Christensen here, I feel that I'm starting to see her more on the TV as a pundit. And that's the thing. There's opportunities now for women of a senior age, coming out of football, going into coaching roles, getting media roles, talking on the men's game, talking on the women's game, hosting, offering their contributions. And I think Izzy Christensen will still be a big part of that. We're still going to see and hear a lot of her, and she deserves that. She's very, very good, and she deserves to get that opportunity now that she's retiring from football.
That's been a huge thing Shebahn has in recent years, the amount of female pundits, and what's
ridiculous.
What's the response been in the women's game to that, because it is a game changer.
Yeah, I mean, that's total sarcasm from my part there. It's when you go through the comments, I'm like, oh my goodness, that people genuinely still have the approach is, why is this woman talking about football? Get back in the kitchen. And I'm like, mate, what is wrong?
Why don't you get off your laptop maybe?
Yeah,
I know, and I'm up to date with my ironing, and I can still sit here talking to you guys about football this morning. It's incredible. But yeah, no, there's been a huge change for that. We're seeing it often. I embrace it. Aaaaaaand, I was at an award ceremony last night, the first women's football award ceremony, and it was Jamie Carragher and Aaaaaaand hosting it, and I think Annie's a big part of that. She's been part of working on the men's side of football for a long time, but still champions the women's game, and again, it works well together. It is absolutely perfect. For me, what was interesting last night, we were celebrating women in football, and Harry Kane and Declan Rice were there to pick up their men's kind of champion of women's football award. And everyone in the room got up to take pictures of them. Alessia Russo was sitting in front of me, and I was like sneakily trying to take pictures of her. And I thought, what are we celebrating here? Like, can we not enjoy this moment? And instead, it's like, oh, there's two men who are world beaters at football. Let's take more pictures of them and let's give them the round of applause of the night. And I was kind of sitting there thinking to myself, should it not be the women that we're celebrating here tonight? That was just my observation coming away with it. But we're seeing that change. Izzy Christensen's one of them more recently. Farrah Williams, for me, was the OG at doing that, but she's very much so still invested in the women's game, and we see her a lot on BBC with Alex Scott. But yeah, I mean, long may that continue. I want to see Rusha. Speaking about Rusha, I think she offers so much when she's in that role, and I love that she's herself, and she can have a bit of crack about it, and just be completely normal and experienced at the same time and have good fun. And I want to see more of that when it comes to commentaries and punditry as well. But the women deserve all of that opportunity and to be there, just to be there and be part of that. Why not?
Did you say it was the first of those award ceremonies last night, Shebahn?
It was the inaugural, Women's Football Awards, last night.
Took their time getting there, didn't they? Jesus.
I know, we're 2023. This is fantastic. I mean, one of the women I was sitting with last night, Vicky Gomersall, she works at Sky Sports News. You'll know her, and she actually said, "This is actually outrageous. Like, this is 2023, and we've decided now it's time for a Women's Football Awards." And I thought, yeah, that as well. That as well. But we're there now. It is. It's still a bit of a hurdle. Weirdly, even though women in football is growing and the opportunities are there, but sometimes it still does feel a little bit like it's a man's world, a wee bit. But that's fine. I like mine too.
Well, the only positive thing, I guess, is that if you look at where the WSL and women's football generally and the way we talk about it has come in the last 5 or 10 years, even in the next 5 or 10 years,
the last 2 years,
but it's going to exponentially, imagine, keep going up.
The challenge we have in Ireland, Shebahn, is like to. This is just an extension of the men's game, but it's obviously more pronounced. Keep our best women playing in Ireland as long as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's it. You want to grow the league, don't you? Domestically, you want all those best players in your country representing that league. That is what you want. And I also feel it with Scotland a little bit as well. We've seen this shift in Scotland, especially coming into the end of the Scottish season, and the eyes that have come on it and the interest that have come on it, the difference that it makes, you guys are doing a great job. You've got Katie McCabe and a number of Irish international stars, like who are there representing and growing the game, and who are absolutely excellent and involve everybody around them and soak it all up. I've watched that journey. I've watched that rise. So I only see it going one way. You need good people setting by example and leading the way, and the rest will follow. And I think you will see that change soon. I hope that happens.
I gotta ask you before you go, what is the origin of your first name? It's the first time I've ever come across Shebahn. It's like reminds me of like Autobahn, Siobhan. I don't know what's going on.
Do you know what, the amount of people last night just still call me Siobhan, and I find myself saying Shebahn. I don't know. My mum and dad must have been playing drunken Scrabble when the name does, to be honest. It's I want to say Shebahn, which is Shebahn is an Irish word.
It is.
And Siobhan, and they went for Shebahn. But again, I've never met another Shebahn. I'm half Irish. I was an Irish dancer for 22 years, and of all the competitions I went to, never met another Shebahn. So I'll take it. I'm the OG.
What's the poster in the background there, Shebahn? Is that a basketball match?
Yeah, that's Michael Jordan's last shot for the Bulls.
Yes.
Yeah, look at all the gutted faces in the background. You've seen The Last Dance?
Of course.
Yeah,
you've seen the Air movie, Siobhan? The Air movie on the whole
Haven't seen it yet.
It's
on my list. I'm looking forward to that. My husband actually picked this picture, and there's some brilliant sporting events where what they do is they take the individual and then have the crowd in the background in black and white. There's the brilliant one of Tiger Woods getting that that shot at the Masters, and everybody then walking down the kind of green behind him. I'd like to get that one next, and then hopefully one of maybe Russia, Republic of Ireland in the summer. That would be great.
Her lifting the World Cup in colour and everyone else in the background in black and white. I know, we can dream. But listen, Shebahn, brilliant stuff as always. Always enjoyed the chats. Thanks a million for hopping on.
Thanks for having me. Have a good Friday and a good weekend.
You too. Football broadcaster Shebahn Aherne there.
She'd put you in good form. Just that's infectious. Get you in the mood for the weekend.
100%. A great Friday guest. Yeah. To be fair,
of course you're buzzing for tomorrow now. Will you be kind of struggling to sleep tonight? Kind of early to bed?
No, I usually I'm experienced now. I'm captain of the team, Johnny. So I'll sleep fine. The WhatsApp group will be hopping this evening it already is hopping with different bits of advice, nutrition advice, and get the water on board today because it's going to be a hot enough weekend, I think. So you need the fluids on board for a match like that, I think.
Where are you playing, centre mid?
No, I'll be up front.
Up front?
Yeah. I'll be up front. Hopefully banging a goal or two. That's the plan anyway. If I start, of course. If I start.
It's Colm in your ear there. Yeah, he's like one of these managers just keeping you in check.
I'd be causing a strop now if I didn't start. I'd walk out of the dressing room, throw the armband on the wall. No, I wouldn't do that, of course. I'd be very mature about the whole thing. The best team made the best team start, made the best team win.
Yeah.
So appreciate the good messages, Johnny, but looking forward to it.
There we go.
Sure. Before we get to Alan Quinlan, who is standing by very shortly, 9:15 a.m. on this Friday morning's OTB AM, we want to bring you a clip from the latest episode of the Hurling Pod, where Paul Murphy, James Scahill and Will discussed Westmeath's astonishing comeback against Wexford. The Hurling Pod with Bord Gáis Energy, proud sponsors of the Senior Hurling Championship and the Tour Series taking place in Croke Park. Here are some highlights on the OTB Podcast Network for you today. Adam Pope, LOI Matchday, and Dr. Kate Kirby and Pat Daly continuing the underage GA debate with Nathan last night. You can follow OTB across social and subscribe to the OTB Podcast Network. My voice is absolutely gone, but we'll get there after the ads. Alan Quinlan live from South Africa for the URC final. Back in a sec.
You're listening
to OTB AM.
On this week's The Quirky podcast, we had an exclusive interview with Manchester United's Ona Badier ahead of the final day of the Women's Super League season.
I like and I love this kind of moments, this kind of games, like with those crowds and that pressure. I just love it. So I really wanted to enjoy every second.
Listen now and make sure you subscribe to the Quirky podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts.
It's a shot in the arm, Murph, for Westmeath hurling particularly, because they've been scrapping all year, didn't have a good year in Division 1A, but got themselves together, beat Laois in the relegation playoff. They've now put themselves in a very strong position to stay up in the Lee McCarthy for 3 successive seasons. When you take all those blows along the way and you have bad days, you have to give them a lot of credit on a day like today.
Yeah, you do, absolutely. And I suppose beating Wexford and staying in Lee McCarthy, but staying in it during the round robin phase on your own terms is another huge measurable for Westmeath to be able to say. And like, they have taken a few beatings, and I know Joe Fortune has come out and said it like that, we don't want moral victories, and even he was speaking very passionately there that we don't want to refer to it as scalps. Like, they want to see themselves on a par with teams. This is a huge step towards that though as well, because next time we turn around and we have conversations about Westmeath and maybe teams taking them for granted, like, you have a serious game here where you can point to that they went down to Wexford Park at a time when Wexford really needed a win, and were taken for granted that this was going to be a win. 17 points down at half time, and look, I said it already again, like, I mean, there is an element of implosion, of course, here for Wexford, and like, there's a full other conversation to be had about Wexford and where is Wexford hurling at the moment, but Westmeath can only play what's in front of them, and it's an enormous win for them. And they've been, they've been I suppose a shining light in the Leinster Championship, and how they keep going about their business, keep putting in performances. Like, unfortunately, against Kilkenny this year in the first match, like, they were without 5 players, and they just couldn't go and maybe have a performance where they could come away from it like saying, we did this well, we did that well. It was a tough day for them, but today is a day that they can cling to now and say, and the supporters, as Joe Fortune said, like, the supporters, for them to go on the road and driving home tonight of a Sunday evening, hoping to watch the Sunday game and see Westmeath victorious down at Wexford Park, like, that's huge, and it's brilliant, and it's brilliant for the players as well, because look, they've put in a lot of hard miles to get to this stage. So it's a good news story in Munster hurling today.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Approaching 9:19 a.m. on this Friday morning's OTB AM, and it's Cape Town calling, because we're heading over to South Africa now ahead of the URC final between the Stormers and Munster, which takes place tomorrow 5:30 at the DHL Stadium in Cape Town. Alan Quinlan, good morning, how are things?
Morning, lads, all good, Shane, thanks.
Any crack over there? I heard it was pelting rain yesterday.
Yeah, it was lashing rain all day. It didn't, in fairness to Munster fans, made a good decision. They stayed in out of the rain all day in the pubs here in Cape Town. So
I'm not sure that was impacted by the rain. I'd say that would have been the plan regardless.
Well, I met one man from Abbeyfield, Dan O'Connor, and he said he rang his wife and she said, be very careful, you stay in out of that rain. He said no problem, so he stayed in the pub for the whole day.
Just follow the advice.
What's it like actually, Quinny, Cape Town?
It's lovely. It's obviously culturally very different, Johnny. I think there's a lot of challenges here. When you drive from the airport into the city, you see all the townships on both sides on the way in, and then you get into the city, obviously, and you go to Camps Bay or one of these places, and you see a different way of life and a different level from the poverty that you see on the way in from the airport. But it's beautiful. Cape Town is a beautiful place. South Africa is a lovely place. I've been here many times, and well documented challenges here for them, and but it's a beautiful place to visit, and there's so many tourists come here for obvious reasons, go on safaris, all that stuff. But Cape Town is beautiful. So many things to see here as well.
Many Munster fans made the trip. It's a 55,000 record sellout, as I understand it, but have many travelled over?
Well, there's talks of 5,000. I don't know if that's going to materialise, but that was being reported during the week. But kind of every corner or area you go to, you see Munster jerseys floating around. They're donning the colours. The hotel was rocking here last night. There was lots of them celebrating and enjoying themselves, I should say, not celebrating
just yet.
Yeah, but there's talks of a lot of Munster fans travelling. There's obviously travel groups here, organised travel groups, and then there's people, I suppose, who've come themselves. And I met a couple of people from America last night, expats who travel from the States. There's people from, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, all that kind of stuff. So you're meeting people from everywhere here. But I don't know the exact numbers, but they'll definitely try and make themselves heard. They're going to be totally outnumbered. Obviously, there's going to be over 50,000 Stormers fans here, and it's a wonderful stadium. The big concern is the pitch, really, and the South Africans will say that themselves. And it rained all day yesterday, constant. So that's going to make it even more challenging for the surface and the pitch.
Yeah, certainly going to add an extra element to the whole thing for sure. Like, Munster looking for the first success in the URC in 12 years. I mean, if they win at the weekend, Quinny, if you'd said at the start of the year Leinster would finish with no silverware and Munster would get some, I mean, you'd have ripped their arm off.
it's really unthinkable, Shane. Because, and that's basically down to the start, Munster started a campaign away to Cardiff. They lost. They had to go back the week after. This is back in September, and they lost to the Dragons. So 2 games in, there are 2 losses. Then they beat Zebra at home, didn't get a bonus point win, underwhelming performance, then lost to Connacht, beat the Bulls, and then lost to Leinster and Ulster. So in the first 5 games, you'd 5 losses out of 7 matches. So you wouldn't be that optimistic with that sort of situation in any sport if you lose 5 of your first league games out of 7. So it really is credit to, you've got to give them a lot of credit. From probably November, they went on a great run right up to the end of March, when Glasgow kind of shocked them at home and beat them convincingly at home, and really kind of took away. There was a possibility that they were going to take away a situation where they could make the playoffs. At that stage, you were thinking top 4, home quarter-final, being in Europe, all that stuff. And then you had that daunting task of going to South Africa in round 17 and 18. So it wasn't looking good around that time, the end of March. But they went to South Africa and they were brilliant. They got a brilliant win against the Stormers, a draw against the Sharks. Then they obviously went to Glasgow and to Dublin to beat Leinster. So they've shown a lot of character. They've shown a lot of improvement from the start of the season. There was mitigation around the start, I suppose. They had a lot of players away on that Emerging Ireland tour in South Africa. A very, very slow start. New coaches, new game plan, all that kind of stuff. But nobody would have expected this, and that's probably the reality. So they find themselves in a final. They've lost 3 finals since 2011. To Glasgow in 2015, the Scarlets 2017, and to Leinster in 2021. So, and I suppose there's plenty of semi-finals in there as well. So they've been knocking on the door a few times, but haven't got over the line. And this is going to be a really tough task, and that's just a reality. You're so far away from home, playing against the champions, lots of Springboks in their team, but they've shown a little bit of grit and determination, quality in the last week, a couple of weeks, that would give you positive signs going into this final.
The influence of Manny Libbok will be fairly crucial for Munster to nullify Quinny. I mean, he really is their golden boy for the Stormers. Going to be a tough task to stop him, but I suppose if you can, I guess, thwart his influence on the game to some degree, Munster will have a serious chance of winning. Yeah, well, if he gets time and space, and he's very, very talented. I think nobody wanted him a couple of years ago. Stormers signed him. Up and down performances at times over the last number of years, but he's undoubted quality. He's a running fly half who can step. He's so quick. He's such a danger at all times, and I think you saw that in the semi-final win against the Connacht a couple of weeks ago, where the Stormers kind of struck from deep, and they didn't have a lot of possession that game. Amazingly, Connacht had 70% possession and 66% territory. So kind of when you look at the stats of possession and territory, you think Connacht should have been closer, and they were at stages in the game, but the Stormers can really hurt you with in those early phases, if you like, of attack, and Libbok is central to that. If he's in flow, he can be very, very dangerous. So he's someone Munster be very aware of. But there's many players in this team. They have a lot of quality, a lot of power, and they've incredible athleticism. So they're big physical players who can step. But they're an ambitious team as well. The Stormers, they throw the ball around a little bit. So they're top quality side who, like any South African side, have that power and strength up front. So if Libbok gets good quality ball, he can really, really hurt you. I think he would have been disappointed a few weeks ago. He missed a couple of kicks in that game against Munster, which were crucial in the end. But if he gets time and space, he can really hurt teams. It's funny, I was reading quotes from Bernard Jackman yesterday, and he was very much making the case for Munster. Like he said, if Munster defend as they have recently, they'll be very, very tough to beat. He said the Stormers are incredibly loose, they give you opportunities, and he described them as a little bit wild as well. So there are certainly aspects of the Stormers, albeit, as he said, they were impressive against Connacht, but there are elements to their game that you can really get at.
Yeah, well, look, and what Bernard is saying there is correct. I think if you lose those kind of collisions early on in the first couple of phases, well, they get in behind you, and then that athleticism and X factor can really tell, and they finish you off and score tries. If you're strong and resilient and connected in defence and frustrate them a little bit, well, that's going to be the key for Munster. So defensively, it is really, really important that Munster, don't shoot out of the line. They back themselves to stay connected. In that game in the semi-final, when Connacht kicked upfield, very fragmented line, defensive line coming up, one-on-one situations where these guys can just step you and run past you. Damien Willems at a full back is, he'd rather run than kick, and he'll step you. So if they get through, then the reaction is very quick and their anticipation around that. So that's what they want to do, of course. So Munster have got to be disciplined and controlled in when they kick and where they kick. But I think the stats show that Munster are very much a possession-based team, and they've been pretty good, really good this season in their top number of rucks in the league. So they hold on to the ball for long periods. So they're going to, and they did that a couple of weeks ago. Sometimes you can say all these things, Shane, and it doesn't pan out that way. I think the Stormers will have looked at Munster and they'll try and figure out ways of getting the ball back off them, smashing them probably when they carry and stuff like that. But for Munster, it's very much a case of, you can overanalyze and look at the opposition, but I think they'll be very conscious of loose kicking, and their wingers come in off scrums and lineouts, and if you don't make that first up tackle, if they get in behind you or get an offload, well, they cause all sorts of problems. And that's what they did against Connacht, because a team with 29% possession in a game scored 6 tries. It's unbelievable, really. So that would indicate that with limited possession, they can really hurt you. So, of course, Munster have got to be disciplined. And if they do that, they can frustrate them. And they've got to stay in the game here, because I think the Stormers will really think that, they had one off day a couple of weeks ago, and Munster are not good enough to be here, or mixing it with them. I would think they really think that they are a very good side. There's no doubt about it. They're the champions, and they have a perfect situation of a home final with 50,000 people cheering them on.
We saw last week, though, home final doesn't always go in favour of the home team.
It's mad to think some of the tickets were less than €4, which wouldn't get you half a burger in the Aviva Stadium. Literally wouldn't get you half a burger, and you compare it. But just how big would it be for Munster's development if they were to win this, Quinny?
It's pretty obvious, Johnny. It would be massive, given where they've been for the last number of years, and the frustration for Munster fans, and a couple of seasons where you think you're back on track and you're getting there, probably under Rassi Erasmus and Jack Nienenberg, getting to that final in 2017, getting to European Cup semi-final, albeit they got well beaten by Saracens in that semi-final in Europe that year. And well beaten in the final by the Scarlets, you kind of get a sense that they're on the right track, and that there's players coming through, and maybe a little bit adding a few players here and there along the way, and that you're going to stay at that level where you're going to be getting to at least semi-finals or playoffs and been in the knockout stages of Europe. So it's been topsy-turvy the last couple of years, fair bit of frustration. But I think since Graham Roundtree's come in, I think he's steadied the ship. He's got a great connection with the fans again. He's very open and honest in his interviews. And I know from, if you interviewed Graham Roundtree this morning here, he'd be quite relaxed about, wouldn't be giving you coaches speak. He's very honest, and I think he comes out after games if they haven't played well, and he kind of takes ownership of that. And I like that about him. And but look, the fans and that whole connection isn't going to bring you success. You've got to bring quality through. There is some young players that give you hope for optimism that they're coming through. There's certain areas that they're short in. They need more depth in the front row. They need more guys on the Irish team. It's quite obvious. The more players you have playing nationally, the stronger you are provincially, and so I think they're on the right track. And there's certainly a different feel that. Look, they could. It's very easy. The Stormers could blow them away tomorrow. It's unlikely. I think Munster have a great chance, but they're that kind of a side that could suddenly kind of make all that optimism evaporate because they've such a balanced squad. They've way more depth. They've way more internationals, current internationals. So, but I think they're on the right track, Johnny. It's a really good question. I think a lot of Munster fans would ask that question if I meet them. You have young players that are coming through. Jack Crowley, John Hodnett, Alex Kendellan, these guys, Calvin Nash and Shane Daly have been really stepped up this year, shown their quality. Edwin Adogbo's come through this year. He's only 19. There's the two guys who are on the Munster under-20s, Ruan Quinn. So look, there is optimism, but there's more quality needed, and I think they're enjoying it. I think John Klein spoke this week that in his 7 years here, he thinks they're the tightest knit group, and he's really enjoyed it. So that stuff helps. You've got to add more quality, but winning a trophy tomorrow would give them a huge lift internally to say, well, look, this is the template. This is where we can get to. They've worked incredibly hard to kind of turn their season around from the start, and I give them, deserve massive credit for that. And nobody thought they were going to be in a final. So it would be unbelievable if they were to win it. It's going to be a mountain to climb from. But, I think they will believe, and they've shown us in recent weeks that they have a bit of steel about them. And that's what I like, and that's what the Munster faithful or supporters want. They want to see that passion, drive and determination, and they've been incredibly brave this year the way they've played. So for Mike Prendergast to come in and do the job he's done, he's been brilliant. Dennis Leamy, Andy Kiriakou with the forwards, so they've made a great impact in this team. They need more quality through, and obviously there's a level there that you consistently need to be good at. So no matter what happens tomorrow, I think it's really imperative that they get a good pre-season and they hit the ground running, because you don't want another situation where you're struggling at the start of the season again.
Yeah, Nash, you mentioned return from injury along with Fekitoa and Snyman and Murray, so some big guns back. Score prediction, Quinny?
Oh, it's a tough one, Shane. I do. Yeah, I don't know. I can't give you a score prediction, but I think part of me really believes they have a great chance and that they are going to. I just hope they bring their best performance. It still may not be good enough, and that they play and they show that bravery. I think it's really difficult to run they've had, being away from home in South Africa for those 2 games, then going away to Glasgow, then going away to Dublin. They've got great results, and they've really turned what could have been a very disappointing end to the season into a massively positive one. I love the fact that John Klein said this week, this isn't bonus territory, we want to win. I always talk about that in the last few weeks. Bonus territory is kind of accepting, we've got here, sure, and it's okay if we lose. So I like that out of him. He's been brilliant from this season. So I don't know, I think Munster can do it for sure, but there's part of me thinking the Stormers are maybe just spoil the party a little bit for the Munster fans that have travelled. But either way, they've done brilliant to get to this position.
Yeah, should be a cracking game regardless. Enjoy the match, Quinny. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
Great stuff. Ali Quinlan on the line there from Cape Town ahead of that game tomorrow, 5:30 at the DHL Stadium. Munster against Stormers in the URC final. Johnny, thanks a million.
Thanks, Shane, and best of luck tomorrow. We'll genuinely be keeping tabs. Your first cup final, is it?
First cup final this season, yeah. We lost three semi-finals, so it's good to get a final and hopefully get over the line, get a bit of silverware. Be nice. I should start writing a speech.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be all over the dressing room. Is it? Who are you playing? Glasgow Villa. Yeah,
no, they'll be heavy favourites, to be fair.
Are they?
Well, they'll be favourites. Well, I'm going to say that now anyway and build them up.
Yeah.
But it should be a good game regardless.
Will you give an inspirational speech beforehand?
I'll say a few words, maybe drop something into the WhatsApp group tonight. Hopefully my voice is improved by then. But appreciate the good luck messages. Cheers, Johnny, for everything on the show this morning. I was about to say this afternoon. OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night edition available now. There we go. On Monday's show, Ger and myself back with the Gillette Labs performance rankings.
You're already hoarse and you haven't even
haven't done the weekend. The URC final reaction, of course. Sarah O'Donovan and Anthony Moyles talking the weekend's GAA. The final day of the Premier League and WSL as well. It's going to be a busy performance rankings and busy show on Monday in general. Right now, John Giles, have a fabulous Friday.
Delighted to be joined by John Giles. Evening, John.
Evening, Nathan.
How are you keeping?
I'm good, thank you.
Nervy weekend, I think, to put it mildly, if you're a Leeds United supporter.
Yeah, well, there's 3 in a minute, Nathan, as we know, but I'd say Leeds look more in trouble than the other 2.
Yeah, the psychology of it'll be quite interesting. It's straightforward for Leeds. They have to win. They're not protecting anything. They've got to go out there on Sunday and somehow beat Tottenham. Whereas for Everton, they could lose and stay up. Maybe the mindset will be slightly different there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be different for them all in many ways. But when they're in the position they're in, Everton or Leeds, they have to win to have a chance. Everton have it mostly in their hands and the other two. If they win, it doesn't matter what Leicester do or Leeds do. The two of them are down. That's a fact. So it's fairly complicated, despite the fact there's only 3 teams in it. If Everton lose, they stay on 33 points. Leicester can win, Leeds can win, and go above them, and then it's between Leicester. It could all boil down to the goals against, Nathan.
The pressure of a game.
The goal difference.
Yeah, the pressure of a game like this. I heard some players talking recently who've been involved in relegation scraps, and of walking through the gates of the stadium and the guy in the door going, "Come on, lads, we need this today," knowing that if they went down, that he would probably lose his job, and the struggle to deal with the impact that defeat would have on so many people. I know you always said you were very good at being able to cope with pressure. When you go back through your career, what was the most pressurized occasion you've ever been involved in?
Well, obviously, if you're near the relegation zone, that's the more pressure than any time. And I was involved in it with Manchester United, believe it or not, Nathan, in 1963. We went on to win the cup, but we played Manchester City. It was Manchester City and ourselves, very, very down in the table, and lucky enough, Manchester City went down that year, and we were down at Main Road at that time, being beaten, and we got a penalty, and Albert Quicksall scored, which kept us only a point or two above City. So that was the nearest I've been to a relegation, and it was very very worrying at the particular time. Manchester City were involved, Manchester United involved, and funny enough, we went on to win the cup, and we were just out of the relegation zone before the cup final, Nathan.
The money involved.
At least when I was there, we were never involved in a relegation fight.
The money involved is obviously far, far greater now than it was back in 1963, but there's probably 10 days between that game in the league against Manchester City and then playing a cup final against Leicester. The pressure, as far as you can remember, is it just a totally different thing when you're fighting for the trophy compared to when you are fighting for survival?
Oh yeah, I think fighting for survival is the most you worry about. Like if you obviously if you're in the cup final, you want to win the cup final, but it's not relegation. If you lose it, which at least we did, we won it, we lost it, and it's a setback, but only in a certain way. Relegation is going down, going into the second division. In case of these, the 3 teams we're talking about now, really, really dangerous. If the 2 of them were playing, if there was 4 teams involved and those 3 teams were involved in the semi-final of the cup this week, you wouldn't have the same tension as you have now. This is really, really serious, and in this day and age, going down into the league, in the next league, Nathan, is you're losing the crowd, you're losing the big. Say for Leeds, if Leeds go down, they're not playing Manchester United and Manchester City and Liverpool and all the big gates that they get now. You're in what was then the second division. And everything suffers. Everybody suffers. The crowd suffer. You don't have the big payment from the television now. You'd like to get whatever it is, 150 million. I think if you go down, you get a parachute of maybe 40. So there's huge things at stake on Sunday.
I presume you don't want your manager reminding you of what's at stake as you go into a game like this.
When you don't need it, the manager, in my opinion, should be trying to lessen the tension in it. You know, he's the man that's getting the team ready. The players, he's got to pick the team. He's got to get them ready. He's got to do the best he can to do it. The players will be nervous enough anyway. So they need more leadership now. These three teams at the weekend than ever before.
The conversation around the quality of these three teams is probably irrelevant at this stage. You know, 2 months ago we would have looked at Leicester and James Maddison and Harvey Barnes and even Jamie Vardy, if he got back to form. You would have looked at Leicester and thought, well, there's definitely enough quality in that team. This Sunday is about something very different, I'd imagine. It's about a bit of character. It's not about necessarily having 11 players better than the opposition. It's about which of these groups can actually take that pressure and deal with it and cope with it and somehow go out and play their best football.
Well, that's what they have to do, Nathan. And don't forget, the managers that have come in don't really know the players as well. I mean, Dyche has his longer, but Allardyce has just come in. Leicester manager has just come in.
Yeah, Dean Smith.
In recent Dean Smith in recent times. So it's desperation, really, that the clubs have had to do what they've done in recent times. Allardyce coming in for 4 matches, Dean Smith coming in a little bit longer. In fact, he left a couple of the players out that you mentioned against Newcastle the other day.
Yeah, what did you think of that decision?
Well, they've been two of the best players, Nathan. You know, you have to be in the manager's position, Dean Smith's position there, to know why. You know, but it looked odd that two of his best players had been left out. You know, obviously he must have felt that they're not doing their stuff, and that's what you have to do. And that's why, you know, when teams are in the position that Leeds are in and Everton are in, it's desperation situation. I mean, I think Dyche has handled it better than the other two because he's been there longer and he knows the players, he knows his best players, and he has to live with them. I mean, he's in the best position, as we know. I mean, he's playing. Who is he playing? Bournemouth, is it? On Sunday?
Yeah, Everton at home to Bournemouth.
And he knows if they win that match, end of story. You know, Leeds are in a position, if they win the match, they still mightn't get out of it because what Everton do. And the same with Leicester. You know, like, definitely Dyche is in the best position, there's no doubt about that. If he wins, the two of them will go down. Now after that, it could go down to goal difference, Nathan. Say if Everton lose, then it's goal difference between Leeds and Leicester if they both win. You know, and Leeds have the worst record in the goals against, the goal difference. So it'd be fascinating to see exactly what will happen, but definitely it couldn't go better. I think Dyche couldn't be in a better position that he's in at this particular stage now, with 1 match to go.
Sam Allardyce, if it all comes off on Sunday, I know you're not his biggest fan, but I'm sure he'll have plenty to say about his achievements if he can somehow get a victory for Leeds and if Everton and Leicester slip up. Have you seen anything from the 3 games so far that would give you hope going into that final game against Tottenham?
Not really, Nathan. You know, like Everton and Dyche, I think, are in a very, very strong position there. But I haven't seen anything from Leeds at all. I mean, West Ham last week beat them well. He's got 1 point from 12 since he's gone to it, and last week's was poor against West Ham. West Ham beat them well and could have beat them by more. So you know, there's not much to look forward to in Leeds in hoping that they'll do it. But in football, Nathan, as you know, you never know what's going to happen. But you wouldn't, if you were putting money on it now, you wouldn't put it on Leeds doing what needs to be done. But there again, they're playing against Spurs. I mean, Spurs have nothing to play for. And they've had a bad time. I mean, they were beaten last week. Like Spurs, since the manager left there early on, and have been poor, to say the least. And they've nothing to play for. They're not going to get into Europe. They're not going to go down. So what's their attitude going to be like with a manager that's not going to be there next year, we think? So you just don't know. But you know, on paper, Everton are certainly in a position. If they win, end of story. It's in their hands. It's not in Leeds' hands. It's not in Leicester's hands. They have to hope that Everton don't do what they should be doing, or Leeds don't do it. All that goes into it. But Dyche is definitely in the best position in a big way.
Well, what we do know is that Manchester City are champions again. They are well clear of Arsenal. Obviously had that draw with Brighton last night, but it was all irrelevant after Arsenal's defeat against Nottingham Forest. 3 in a row for Pep Guardiola's side, joining Manchester United as the only other team to do that in the Premier League.
Yeah.
We've spoken about
it's 5 out of 6, Nathan. You know, I know 3 in a row, but 5 out of 6 as well. It's been phenomenal for Manchester City and Guardiola, no doubt about that. I mean, to come with the run at the end of this season. I mean, I think Arsenal at one stage were about 10 points in front. So it's been fantastic for Manchester City to do what they did.
The addition of Haaland, like, it's hard to believe we were having a conversation at one stage of the season questioning whether he had changed the way Manchester City play in a negative way. It has been quite remarkable what he has done. Does his addition to this Manchester City side make it the best of all those title-winning teams?
What was the great goal scorer they had before?
Aguero.
You know what I mean? He did his stuff as well. He was phenomenal. Not as good as our man is now. You know, he didn't. I don't think he scored as many goals, but he scored a lot when they were winning the trophies. But Haaland has been brilliant. He was. I must say now, and I'm not patting myself up, but I never doubted his addition to Manchester City. Yeah. If somebody scored the amount of goals that he was, it's just that Manchester City weren't winning the matches at that particular time. But it wasn't his fault. For somebody that was scoring the amount of goals that he was scoring all year, you couldn't say, well, you know, he's not doing what he should be doing for Manchester City. That's exactly what he was brought to do, and it's proven to be the case as the season went along. It wasn't his fault. It was just that the team weren't playing as well as Manchester City, and it was him scoring the goals at that particular time. He's been phenomenal, there's no doubt. And then they did pick it up on the race, not for the first time. They've done it in a few seasons. When they needed to win in the last 10 or 12 matches, they've done it, and they've done it in a spectacular fashion this year. And Arsenal just melted away, really, by their standards.
And do you look at Arsenal melting away as a fault of Arsenal, or just inevitable because of the pressure and the brilliance of Manchester City?
Well, I don't think they had the players to do it. I mean, they you know, when it came to the real push against Liverpool when they were winning 2-0 and then they finished up in a draw, I don't think they had the players to do what needed to be done. I think they collapsed at that time. But I don't know if you saw the papers over the weekend. There were some remarkable things about Arteta getting a dog in the dressing room. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
You know, I don't get that, Nathan. You know, like and the dog. What was the dog's name? What was Win or something, wasn't it?
I didn't see the dog's name. Pickles is the only dog I ever know when it comes to football.
Sorry?
I was going to say, was Pickles the dog that found the World Cup trophy? That's the only dog I know when it comes to football.
Yeah, well, they called this dog Win, I think.
Okay.
And then he had some plant or something. They just, like, I know football is strange and it can be a very strange situation, but like when you, in my opinion, when you're a manager like Guardiola, you concentrate on the team and what the team has to do, Nathan. In my opinion, that's what you do. You know, you don't be bringing a dog into the dressing room for whatever reason to be a good company of the players. Anyway, it didn't make sense to me. But you know, they do blow it. Ultimately, you know, they lost an awful lot of matches that if you're going to win the league, you have to do your business on that, and they didn't do it. Now, he has improved in the season, Arteta, from last year. At least he made a run at it, but it was a big collapse from Arsenal's point of view.
Mikel Arteta said, "I feel like we are family and we need a dog to represent that family. I carefully chose the dog, and in my opinion it's the perfect representative of who we are right now. Her name is Win. We all love winning, and Win needs a lot of love." So the love for Win, that was basically the feeling. The reaction from the players and staff has been incredible. She's one of us. She's going to be on this journey with us together. Win needs accountability from us because we have to look after her emotions and what she needs.
Yeah, don't get it, Nathan. Don't get that. I mean, from my experience in football, you talk about football, you put the team right on the pitch, which is the most important thing you can do. I can't see a dog being able to do that, no matter how good it is. It just, like, football is football. You do what the players have to do on the pitch to win matches. That's good. You have to have the knowledge to do it. You have to have the personality to do it, to lead these particular players when they're doing it. I've never heard anything like this before.
According to ESPN, Win wears a tag which reads, "I'm not a dog, I'm a gooner. Come on, the Arsenal."
Yeah, well, and how does that help you on the pitch, Nathan? Unless I'm missing something that I've all my time in football in winning trophies or being on the pitch, where anytime I was with a club, whether Manchester United or West Brom or Leeds, it was always about the team and the football and what went wrong. How do you put it right? What players do you do? Do you need to give them a bit of a telling off? The other players, some players you need to go softly. All those, that's all football. Like having a dog in the dressing room, I just don't see the merit of it, to be quite honest. I just don't.
Yeah, what would Jack Charlton's reaction have been if a dog arrived in the... Well, Jack loved animals, so he might have been all right with it.
Well, not in the dressing room. You have a dog at home. I had a dog for a while. I loved animals and cats and that, but I wouldn't relate them to football in any way whatsoever. You love animals. That's great. But when you're dealing with players and you're going to the championship, or you're dealing with players in the dressing room, you have to talk about football. Okay, if some lad is having a bad time and his wife is not well, or then obviously the humanity comes into it, and you do the best you can with those particular players. But not an animal or a plant. I never heard of that before, ever. And I honestly don't see the benefit of it.
He took an olive tree along to team meetings, symbolising the need for daily care of the squad's roots. He said, "Another symbol at our club is our tree. It needs a lot of care as well. It's an olive tree. It's older than 150 years, similar to the club. We have to look after those roots every single day, make sure they don't get poisoned, don't get damaged, and it's in the right condition."
Yeah, well, I don't get that either. I just don't. I mean, you talk about football in the dressing room. Obviously, if lads are having a bad time at home, and that you do as a manager, you do the best you can. But it's football. What happened on a Saturday? How do you put it right? And how you improve on it is putting things right week by week, Nathan. You don't do this. You eliminate that. You eliminate that, and you get to the players and you teach them you're in the wrong position. This is all football that you do on the pitch. That this is where it matters. The fullback's in the wrong position. You tell him out, you get him out, and you teach him, no, you don't. You've got to be here, you've got to be there. And the team generally, the fitness, the training, and all that. This is all football. That's what I was brought up with, and that's what I lived with when I went to Manchester United, when I went to Leeds, when I went to West Brom. It was always about football. And I was player manager of the Irish team. It was all about football.
You must have had a couple of managers, John, who did a couple of quirky things.
Well, I was with Matt Busby for a while. He never did anything quirky. I was with Don Revy. Don was a bit quirky, and he was superstitious. Don was very superstitious. But that didn't affect the players in any way. Do you know what I mean, Nathan? If he was superstitious, and like I think I told you the story when I first went to Leeds. In those days, I got my boots got my boots with me from Old Trafford, and had him in a bag. And it was the first time I was there. I went to see him in the office and put the boots on the table. And we were talking for a while. And he said, what's that there? I said, that's my boots. What? Get them off the table, quick. After that, because it was bad luck having them on. I didn't know, because Don was very superstitious like that, you know. But when it came to football, you know, when we were doing something wrong, what we should have been, he was putting us right in the football, putting us right on the football, attitude, fitness, all those things. You know, that's what he concentrated on. But we never ever, I don't ever heard of a dog being mentioned of coming into the dressing room. Ever. Anywhere. That's the last week when I read that and the plant. It's the first time I ever came across anything like that, Nathan. Now, maybe I'm old-fashioned and it's come into the game, but I never heard of it before.
I dare say that poor old Wynne has been pretty disappointed in what he's seen from the Arsenal players over the last few weeks. They've let her down badly.
Well, he hasn't worked, has it?
No.
I mean, you could get two dogs in, I don't think it's going to work. I mean, like Arsenal had a good, I think Arteta's done a good job for them last year. You know, he's got them in second in position, which the first time they've been there for a while. So he's made progress, isn't he? So maybe I'm wrong, Nathan, but certainly when it came to the crunch, they didn't do what needed to be done when Manchester City did. There's no doubt about that.
I want to talk to you about Brighton, because Roberto De Zerbi has been receiving a huge amount of praise for Brighton's achievement of finishing sixth. They're going to play Europa League football, but more so actually the style of football and the level of performance that he's got out of these players. I'm sure you were watching Brighton last night against Manchester City, which was a brilliantly entertaining game. What have you made of the job that De Zerbi has done?
I think it's remarkable, Nathan. If you look, and I must look it up again, if you look at the amount of players that have been sold for quite big money over the last 18 months or 2 years at the most, I've never seen it before in football, where some of the best players have been sold and the team has improved. So whoever is doing the recruitment is absolutely brilliant. And I think what they've done, I think they've gone to countries, Nathan, that wouldn't be Italy and Spain and the major countries you know of, to get players. And it makes sense if we look back on the World Cup, and we all were amazed at the performances of countries that weren't considered major footballing countries. And I think what they've done, whoever's done it there, has been very, very clever at Brighton. If you look at their players, there's a lot of those players they've recruited from what we would consider smaller countries.
Yeah, the likes of Estepinian, who's come in from, he was at Villarreal, but is from Ecuador. Enciso, who scored that wonder goal last night from Paraguay. Maybe we now include Ireland in those list of countries as well?
Oh, well, we've always had good players come from our country over the years. You know, over the years, if you look at some...
Not as many as of late, but you're probably seeing a bit more of...
We've got the lad at Brighton as well. They've recruited
Evan
him.
Ferguson,
You know, he's only, 19, isn't he?
Not even that. Evan Ferguson is still 18.
He's brilliant. You know, he's brilliant, that kid. He's going to be a great asset to us. But we've always produced players, Nathan, over the years. Unlike some of say, Japan and countries now that they're bringing top players from. And I think they're the first in on these players. They're amazing. And what the manager said is there's two of the players, he said, that could go. He said if they've got to go, they've got to go. Which is amazing from a manager, because you want to keep your best players. So he obviously must know if those players go and they get the money for them, they've got more players coming along. They've been absolutely amazing. I mean, don't forget the other manager went to
Graham Potter.
You know, he did a great job while he was there.
Yeah.
So whoever's recruiting the players, I mean, the manager's only as good as the players he has. So the recruitment is absolutely fantastic, and the way they play and the manner in which they play, having the courage to do it. I mean, the match I saw, I didn't actually see the match yesterday, but I saw the match last week where they beat Liverpool. I think it was Liverpool they beat.
They beat Arsenal. Arsenal 3-0.
Sorry, they beat Arsenal. They killed them. Playing out from the back, Nathan. I've never been in favour of playing out from the back, but the manner in which they played and the risks that I regard as risks doing it, but they did it time after time after time. I haven't seen any team doing it in the way they've been doing it. So the coach has been absolutely brilliant, and they've got one of the European places next year, haven't they?
Yeah, they're in the Europa League next year.
It's fantastic. Guardiola will probably get manager of the year. He deserves it. But this fella,